supposed to be fishing, but it was seriously freaking hot today. It is hot for September, that's for damn sure. And I just thought it just wasn't going to happen. I want to save my nights up, save my opportunities, get other stuff done. So now I've skipped fishing, but I went to the lake, and there's an area that I've been baiting up, and all the fish were in that area. They were kind of 3 rod lengths off in this set of snags and around the lilies. So I fed them up near, so kind of like part way between where they were and where I've been baiting up. And it's so fucking annoying, but the fish, they were down on it. They were on it. They were up for a feed. I thought it would be too hot to kind of warrant doing it all. But no, they were straight down on the bait. They looked up for it. They looked very, very catchable, but unfortunately I didn't have my tackle with me. But this dude came around he's travelled down from up north for 3 nights. He's got a ticket on the syndicate, and like he's talking to me right over where I've been baiting up, near where I've been pre-baiting for the last kind of 3 weeks. And obviously I don't want him to see these fucking fish beneath us. But I've put some bait in. We're looking out. He's like, "Oh, surely the fish are over this end, aren't they, mate?" And I'm like, yeah, I've seen a little one." I find it very hard to lie, but at the same time, I don't want to give everything away. I'm like, "Oh yeah, seen a little one milling around." Because we're on the end of the wind as well. Anyway, we're like chatting on. He's like looking out as we're chatting. All of a sudden, like right by our feet, maybe 20 yards away, not even 20 yards away actually, because we're kind of up higher and it's down, it starts like jacuzziing up. It's this sheets coming up, sheets of bubble. No. Yeah, like the fish are really on my bait. I can see this out in the corner of my eye, and I don't think this dude has clocked it. So I'm kind of like turn to him and just give the most laser focused eye contact I've ever made. And just, when you're trying to just keep him engaged, I must have looked like a right psychopath. But yeah, it didn't work. So soon enough, he noticed. He's like, "Jesus Christ, look at that!" And yeah, and that was it, foiled. So anyway, then I had to leave because I was going to fish and I planned to not fish, though, which means I've got stuff to do now. So I had to get back. So I've just left the lake, not knowing if he's going to jump in that area or not. You can't actually. Where I fed them, you can't actually fish to, if that makes sense. But it's, as I said, it's not very far from where I've been baiting. So he could be in that swim. And I don't think he would put a bait where I've been baiting. I hope not anyway. But you never know. And nonetheless, that swim is taken. My plan was I was going to go back tomorrow and do a few hours just because it looked really right for it, despite what I previously thought. Anyway, yeah, long-winded story, but no, I'm not
why
fishing.
Can't you fish there, mate? What is it, like an out-of-bounds area you feed in?
No, it's just there's no swim that you could safely cast that specific area from, just because of snags and lilies that would be in the way, basically. Yeah. But there's a swim like round the corner, and as I said, like the area that I've been baiting up is about 3 rod lengths off of where the vicinity that they were in the snags and the lilies. So it's like it's that end of the lake. The lake is, I don't know, 14 acres, something like that. So like they're in that area. I'm confident. I would have been confident fishing that area. But of course, I should have taken my gear. I thought bets would be off. I didn't think it would be happening tonight, so I thought, do you know what, I won't do the night. I'll get the bait in again. I always think when you're pre-baiting, the longer you can leave an area with regularly bait it, the longer you can leave fishing it, the better. Like that spot just gets better and better the longer it doesn't have lines in the water, but the longer it's getting baited, if that makes sense. So I thought, look, it's not great condition. It's super freaking hot. Not much has been coming out of the lake anyway. Tonight's probably not the night for it. So I just thought, you know what, I won't fish, but I'll go and bait up. But yeah, sod's law, get there, and it's looking freaking good for it in that area. Which just shows, we think we know, but we don't always know. Well, certainly I don't anyway. So yeah, a bit gutted. But long-winded answer, mate. No, I'm not fishing tonight. I'm at home chatting to you. It's pretty depressing.
Not at all, mate. Not at all. Where else would you want to be? So, are you having a beer tonight? Are you having a tipple of the episode?
I'm having some beers, yeah. I actually had a couple of beers at the lake, so I'm already a few deep in. But yeah, I've just got I've got some Stella. Chaving it up with some Stella, and I've got the big pint cans as well. So in my fridge, I've got 6 of these, basically 6 pints of Stella. Sounds like a good night, doesn't it?
Yeah, mate. Poor Katie.
What about you? Poor Katie.
Mate. I've similar to you, mate. I'm chaving it up. I've got pint-sized cans. I've not got 6, 4 tins of Red Stripe.
Red Stripe, Jamaican.
Yeah, keeping it Caribbean.
Going back to your Jamaican heritage there.
Yeah, as Jamaican as I am, is probably Jamaica in on Bobbing Moor, mate.
Do you know what? Every time so Tyler, my boy, he loves going there. Every time we're in Cornwall, like literally every single time, I end up taking him to Jamaica Inn for some food. He absolutely loves it there. But yeah, good old Jamaica Inn.
I don't know if we've ever told the tale on the podcast. I'm sure we have, mate. I'm sure we've told quite a few of our little tales. But that's just reminded me of the time when we had a few too many beers in Jamaica Inn.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say. I don't think we've ever told that story, but it's probably best we don't.
Oh, I don't think it's too harm. Basically, there's a lake nearby which holds some fish, which you shouldn't necessarily be sort of fishing for. And we had turned up to fish it, hadn't we? And there was a lot of the public nearby, so we thought, rather than sort of pitch up there in broad daylight and be really obvious, we'd sort of wait till dusk kicks in. So we just nipped up to the pub for a few beers. Yeah. And I remember we were drinking Rattler, and we had quite a few pints, got pretty paralytic, and I remember just sleeping on my bed chair outside, never putting the rods out or anything like that. You had a brand new phone and dropped it, and you smashed your brand new iPhone and blamed me for it.
It was totally your fault as well. Never paid me for it either.
You're pissed and dropped your phone.
Was
it's only because I laughed. I found it. I saw the funny side in it.
Was that
you didn't see the funny side in it?
Oh, of course I didn't. Was that the time you just left me in the morning, or was that another time you took a photo?
No, that is. Yeah, that's the time.
That's the same time. Yeah.
Yes.
Broad daylight. And yeah, I'm just out cold on my bed chair, aren't I?
Yeah, I just literally left you.
Yeah.
I had to go to work.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate
That's
it.
all right.
Anyway,
photos, eh?
Yeah, you got the photo. Let's start, shall we?
I think we should.
Welcome back to the Carp Chronicles podcast. Episode number, I don't know what. Number 40, is it? I think it might be number 40.
Surely not.
Woo!
Bloody hell.
I think it
That's
is.
a bit of a milestone, isn't it?
It's number 40. I've just checked. Yeah, number 40. It's a bit of a milestone, mate. Yeah, I've been going for a while. Obviously, we are brought to you by carphuntergiveaways.co.uk. As always, I know we always say it, but these are actually really, really good guys. But nonetheless, they run fantastic giveaways, suits all budgets. They have giveaways running for just 99p. They have all manner of things from bed chairs, bivvies, bite alarms, bait deals, and pretty much everything in between. Make sure you go and check them out. I think I've mentioned this before, actually. Something me and my girlfriend like to do on a Saturday is we'll enter into a couple of prize draws. It usually starts at 7:30 at night. We'll sit back, have a drink, watch the live draw, and it's just a good little bit of social fun. There's some regular faces on there, and it's like almost like a little community type thing. It's just a nice process to get into. So check them out on social media and on their website, carphuntergiveaways.co.uk. Go ahead, enter. Perhaps I'll see you on the live draw. And yeah, just go and support those guys, or at the very least, go and give them a follow.
Perfecto. Yeah, so where are we going, mate? Are you? You've been fishing a lot more than me, I think, haven't you? The last weeks. I don't even know when we last recorded a salmon peak, but since then I know you've done a lot more fishing than I have.
The last 5 years, if we're being honest, right?
What, you've done a lot more fishing than me?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. And I think you retired in that time, didn't you?
yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, absolutely. I think just to lay it all out, I think in this podcast, we'll give everyone a rundown of what's been going on in our personal angling. It's been a while since we've done a salmon Pete, isn't it? So we'll update everyone. We've both caught well. I think we definitely need to go through. Just purely, not to be like a sales thing, but just so many people have asked us about the different things we've got going on with Bait Bros, so our bait that we're selling. We'll cover that as well. We've got loads of listeners' questions to get through as well. There's some really, really good questions, actually, and I know that we'll go down some good rabbit holes on this one, so I'm quite looking forward to getting to those listeners' questions, actually, and going through them with you. I reckon there'll be some good tangents there. And then, and then we'll just kind of round off and fill everyone in on what's coming up. I mean, we're soon going to be in autumn and winter. Obviously, I mean, I don't know about you, Pete. Well, I do know, but I don't know about everyone else. I mean, I'm changing my tactics come autumn and then winter again. And it's the time of year, I don't know why, but I always kind of like get super focused around my fishing. Now, not that I'm not focused the rest of the time. I very much make hay when the sun shines in spring and summer and autumn, but I don't know, I just kind of get extra honed at that time of year. So anyway, we'll go over that stuff. And I'm sure we'll go off on many tangents in between.
Perfecto. So in the last, I don't know, mate, let's go. What month? We've just started September. All right, since the start of June, for example, how many nights do you think you've done?
How many nights?
Nights, overnighters.
Honestly, I would say 3 or 4.
You see, I thought you'd done less than that. I thought you'd done less. So I know you've been doing a lot of short sessions and a lot of day stuff. I was leading you in to be like, none.
Since the beginning of June, no, I've probably done 5, if we're being honest. Which, by the way, is that's not much for me. Like normally, I try and do a night a week. I try and get out for a night a week. It might not be a full 24 hours. In fact, it rarely is a full 24 hours. But yeah, one night a week is my target. But it's just not happened. But I must be honest. I think that time of year, the kind of fishing that I do, or the other times of the year as well, even earlier in the year, the way I angle is kind of lent towards very short sessions. Like I might only do a few hours of an evening, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, or maybe even just once a week, but I might walk that lake a couple of more times, if that makes sense. And I don't think the time that you're angling is just the time that your rig is in the water. I've said this countless times. You know, it's all the other trips. It's walking around, keeping in tune with the water. That's all angling, isn't it? So, you know, it's not that I've just rocked up for a few hours once a week and just hauled. You know, I've been walking the lake as well. But yeah, anyway, to answer your question, probably 5 nights over the last 3 months, 3 and a bit months.
Which isn't a great deal. So I know, like you're saying, you're like walking all the time. So I think this is just a good sort of way to sum it up for the listener. So like you go quite heavy on the bait. Like you buy a lot of bait, don't you? And you put a lot of bait in the water. So if, say for example, you buy yourself 10 kgs of boilie, how much of that is going in pre-bait in comparison to the time you spend fishing?
I don't know. I didn't know you were going to ask me all this. Well, I don't use that much bait at all. I mean, you said I use a lot of bait. I don't. Put it this way, I've literally ran out today of the bait I'm using, which is Kenny Gates' new bait. I picked up that bait. Let me have a look. I'm going to look on messages now, just to give you an idea of how much I use, and it's not that much. Basically, I bought 30 kilos of bait I picked it up on the 30th of June, okay? 30k, and I've finished using that today. So that's all of July, that's all of August and a bit. So just over 2 months I've used 30k. That might be more than some people. I appreciate that, but I don't think that is that much in the grand scheme of things. So to put that in terms of what I'm putting in a week, I don't know, because I'm not just feeding boilie. I'm also feeding pellet and particles as well. So it's really hard to work out. And to be fair, it changes. Like some weeks I'm like, probably it just doesn't feel right to use too much bait. And then of course other weeks it feels right to use a lot of bait. Mm-hmm. So yeah, hard to answer your question, mate.
I think like the point I was trying to put across was perhaps like, because you've been fishing such short sessions, like you're probably, I imagine, while you're at the lake not feeding a lot of bait whilst you're actually there fishing. I know that when you walk around a lake, mate, you love putting boilie in. I'll never forget when we've done little baiting campaigns in the past. Like you love feeding the boilie. Not necessarily when we're fishing, but just pre-baiting spots, and you do it religiously. But the point I was making was sort of like, I imagine when you're actually fishing sessions, you're not putting in anywhere near as much bait as you would do when you're pre-baiting.
No, often not. What I try and do, if I have the luxury of doing this, I will, if the conditions are right and I think the carp are going to be really on the feed, I'll bait the area that I want to fish quite heavily the day before, and then I'll go the next day and almost kind of top up the swim with a smaller amount of bait. But I've baited quite a lot the day before. Excuse me. I'm very gassy from this Stella. But a lot of times I'll just get to the area and I'll just literally, I mean, if I've put in, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 kilos of boilie, pellet and particle the day before, I will presume that there's perhaps still some feed left, or if there's no feed left, there's quite possibly still carp in the area that are aware that there has been feed there recently. So I just flick out a single. That's what I usually do. I'll turn up, wheel my barrow around if I'm going to do a night, or if I'm just doing a day. I'll walk around with my gear, flick the rods out, and then like kind of sort my life out, so to speak, sort everything out whilst the singles are out there. And if I feel like I need to add more bait, then I will. Or sometimes I'll just leave out the baits as they are. But I think what you're getting at, Pete, is it's not like I'm just rocking up for a few hours every single week with no homework, no pre-work, no pre-baiting, and just catching fish. I think that's what you're trying to get to. And that's right, I'm putting the work in. Most of the fish, I've caught a lot of fish. I'm not giving it the big one at all, but I've caught a lot of fish this year. And it is pretty much all been to the thanks of baiting up regularly, keeping that bait going on, keeping spots primed. And by the way, using a fucking good bait. And I think this is the best bait I've ever used, or it's up there. It's definitely in my top 3 baits I've ever used, which is Kenny Gates' new bait. And it's phenomenal. Like you see, I've seen fish feeding on it. And obviously I've caught a lot of fish, and I'm just utterly confident in that bait. I will not be using anything else for a long time, as long as he mates it. And that's something coming from me, because I'm someone to always strive for something better, always trying to get a new edge with bait. That's just the way I am. But honestly, his new bait, this isn't meant to be an advert for Kenny, but his new bait is extremely good. I guarantee you that.
That is quite an accolade, mate, coming from you. Like you say, you never sort of settle for too long. You're always looking for something a little bit different and something better, maybe.
Well, yeah, I'll use a bait properly, because I don't think you can just rock in with, say, 10 kilos of bait and then make your mind up about it. And a lot of the good baits, they need to be applied for a long period of time to get to where they should be. It's just, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm talking too soon. I've only used 30 kilos of it, but freaking hell, it's just, I don't know what he's putting in. I know pretty much what he's putting in there. He's been very open with me. But it just works. And to be honest with you, knowing what is in it and the way it's made, it's no wonder that it's working so well, because it's how baits should be made, how you'd hope them to be made. All of his baits are, but this one in particular, the R1, is something different. I know it sounds like I'm doing a plug for Kenny. I'm not. Like, this was not planned or anything. It's just a fucking good bait, and I just can't believe it.
Fish meal?
It's a fish meal. Yeah. It's a fish meal. There's several different fish meals in there. There's also a quite high amount of squid meal in it as well. Some great hydrolysates, some low-level flavours and essential oils over the top. I don't know how much is supposed to be public knowledge, so I won't go into it too much.
Yeah.
But it's just awesome. Yeah, and it's done a hell of a lot of fish in the rest of the country around, Essex and Kent as well. It just seems to just be like shining through everything else. It's no surprise. Like, it's how a bait should be made. It's how we all hope baits are made. But unfortunately, most of them aren't. And yeah, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. And obviously, like, he's not one to just like cobble something up and put it out. Like, it's been tested to the nth degree as well. So obviously, it stands to reason it's going to work.
Oh, mate, nice. And this has been your little club water that you've been fishing a lot over the years. Is that where you've been fishing this summer? Mate, we've not really spoke about this, have we? So I don't know anything about your fishing. So you're going to have to fill me in. Is this your syndicate water?
This is a water. Yeah, it's not a club water, no. I have done a little bit on my club water, but I haven't. In fact, I walked around my club water last night for the first time in about 2 months. And that was only because we were looking at getting a fence fitted for it. Because I've, taken on some duties with the water. So no, I've done little bits on the club, mate. But not too much at all.
Nice. And okay, mate. So you I know I'm sort of going back like pre-episode. You said you had quite a lot to sort of discuss about with your fishing. Is there anything in particular you wanted to talk about in like the style you've been fishing, or? No,
I mean it feels like it's so long ago. It's not that long ago, but no, no, not really. I think at the time, if we'd done a podcast, I'd be able to sort of explain how everything unfolded and basically the lake in question, this isn't the club lake, obviously, it's the other lake. It doesn't do that many fish. People, if you get 10 fish a year, you're doing well. And I did that across sort of 10 days without trying to sound like a douchebag. And some of the A team as well. And yeah, I think it was right time as well, to be fair. I think I got very, very lucky. And you know what it's like? You're kind of very involved with it at the time, but like now I look back and it's like not as clear as it once was. But yeah, everything kind of aligned, and I'm sure most people that listen to this will have had this, where you're so in tune with a lake, you catch him well. You know what's going to happen. You know when it's going to happen. You know how it's going to happen. You can build up the picture, and you're just really confident. And there's a fish in there that does not come out very often at all. The last known capture of it was in 2016. And this fish is a decent sized fish. It's pretty much joint the biggest fish in the lake. Might be a little bit bigger than the other one. And all the other ones are quite a bit smaller, if that makes sense. So these two are kind of head and shoulders over the rest of the stock there. And there's some lovely fish in there. And anyway, so I'm fishing this lake. I'm catching well, walking around, just keeping in touch with it. I see a fish that is clearly one of the two big fish. Now, I presume it's the well-known big fish, because the other one's not really on my radar. A lot of people thought it was gone and dead. So I see this big fish, but I only see I see it right in the margin, basically, near some snags. I only see like the flash of the back of it and the tail. Now, the tail of the big one is very distinctive. It's got a part chopped off of it from otter damage. And it didn't look like this fish had that. And I was like, that's odd. But you know how things happen. It like all happened so quick, and then I didn't see the fish again. But it was in this set area. So I was like, well, that's interesting. But I kind of just presumed it was, let's just call it the big one. And I just kind of misread it with my eyes, if that makes sense. So I was like, right, I'm going to catch that fish tomorrow. And I know this sounds really, really ballsy. But I just knew. And I was probably just blind off overconfidence because I've been catching well. But I was like, I'm going to catch that fish tomorrow. For sure. Like, that is mine. I put a little bit of bait in just off of the snag where I think it would have perhaps moved into the snag. Given the position of the body when I saw it and the way it went out, I presumed it came from this area, so I was from that particular point. So I was like, I'll put some bait in there. It's at least going to swim over it. I'm going to come back and catch it tomorrow. And anyway, got up early, managed to switch some stuff around with work. And I was walking around and I was literally so confident. And so many people are going to be listening to me like, oh, this Sam guy's such a arsehole. But I was so confident. I was like, right, I need to slow down. I need to think about how, because Pete's going to want to know, probably going to chat about it on the podcast. I need to think about how I'm going to relay this story. I know it's silly.
So you were thinking about this at the time?
What do you mean?
Before you caught the fish?
I knew I was going to catch the fish, and I knew that you would ask me on the podcast about it.
Wow. Okay.
Honestly, I know it sounds so stupid, and looking back and telling it now, it's just I was just over cocky. You know, that's all it was. Got to bear in mind, I was very in tune with the lake. I knew what was happening when. I knew where the fish would be. I'd turn up on them. Yeah, I was baiting areas, and I was catching off those areas. But sometimes I'd be like, the fish aren't going to be here. I know they're going to be up there. I'd go up there and I'd catch. You know, I'd stalk one out. I was just like, it was like I couldn't put a foot wrong. Okay, again, I know this sounds horribly big-headed. It's blind luck. It's the way it goes sometimes. If you fish enough, everyone gets this, right? So yeah, I saw the flash of the fish, and I was just like so confident. I was like, next day I'm coming back to catch it. So as I said, rock up next day, walking around, I'm like, okay, no, I need to slow down. I need to think about how I'm going to relay the story. Don't get overexcited. Don't get overeager. I just knew it was freaking mine, or at least that's what I thought. So anyway, worked my way around, let everything out, real calm, cool, composed. Flicked the rod out to where I think it would pass. Lay it all down, obviously no alarms. I'm just fishing in the edge, like near a snag, so literally I don't need any alarms. I really gingerly and carefully put a bank stick into the earth, but like set way back from the bank, so my rod tip is kind of adjacent with the edge of the bank, and just a little bit further back than that, I put a bank stick to stop my rod being pulled in, because I need to fish fairly locked up. And then just behind that, I brought a little a bivvy peg with me just to jam the other side so the rod can't go in, if that makes sense.
So you just line the rod on the deck, yeah?
Yeah, the rod's just on the floor. There's no alarm. There's no need for an alarm, right? I'm in the edge. I don't want to fuck around with all that stuff. So yeah, I've just got that jammed in. So I jam it in, turn around, like undo my own hooking mat. I just sit down on my own hooking mat. Because I pack real light, particularly if I'm just doing a few hours in the day. And yeah, literally like 10 minutes later, the rod's just like bending over. Obviously, there's no noise, but it's just, everyone knows that feeling where it's like, it's all peaceful. There's no alarms. You're crept down, you're by the bank edge, and then it's just like all fucking hell breaks loose. And yeah, I pick it up. And it's just like, the rod's just like, I'm not over dramatizing this at all, or whatever that word is, but the rod just like bends down. It's like almost coming out of my hands because I'm pretty much locked up. Fishing with braid as well, so there's no give there. And it just steams off, and I'm just like, I just knew immediately. I was like, I've got it. Like, this is it. Played it in. It got weeded up, snagged up for ages. It was an absolute catastrophe. My braid was going down under snags, through some other snags, and then out the other side of some weed, and I could see the fish and I was just like, I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna get it out of the weed, through that one snag, and then through the other. It was absolute chaos, and I'm missing big chunks of the story out, but it's a big, powerful fish. but just constant pressure on that braid. And some fucking how, some luck, I managed to get it all through, get it all down. It involved getting in the pond, obviously, and I was, out there doing some funky stuff, and yeah, I managed to get it in, and it was the one biggest weight it's been, and that was it, really. So yeah, I was right. I was right. And again, I'm not, it's one of those things. If you fish often enough, you're going to get these times where everything aligns and you just get really lucky and everything kind of comes together. And this was one of those very rare times for me. It doesn't happen that often, trust me. But yeah, it was all good. When I had it, caught her. She's mine.
Yeah, lovely, mate. And obviously, we're talking like Kenny's bait here. Were you just fishing like a bottom bait, like a boilie straight out of the bag? Have you stuck on anything sort of special? One of your maples?
No, not the maples. I'm fishing with Kenny's bait again, which is the R1, and then I just topped it off snowman style with one of our hook baits. To be honest, this is the thing that's, I've said this before, like, we create baits now, we sell baits, so like I have to be constantly using one of our baits, whether it's one that we've got out or one of our prototypes. It's normally always prototypes. Mm-hmm. So no, I had one of those on as a snowman. But yeah, it was fed over Kenny's bait, the R1. 26 millers, so they're big old baits, big old gobful. Yeah.
And he does them as 26, does he? Is that like a stat? You have to request that, or?
That was a special role for me, yeah. Yeah, wow. He doesn't usually do that. Don't go and ask him for that. I don't think he'd be too happy.
You imagine you have to buy a certain number of kilos. Bait makers are normally happy to do the big rolls, aren't they? Because it's a lot less labour intensive.
To be fair, he'd probably be happy with 26 millers. If someone went and asked him for a load of 8 millers, I don't even think he's got 8 mil attachments. But yeah, actually, to be fair, it's probably easier doing big baits. But yeah, no, for special orders, it's 20 kilos minimum from Kenny. But of the R1, it's the first time I've used it. I just got 30 kilos. Yeah, I've put my new order in. I'll be picking up a lot more of it. And then on winter time, I'll go onto his spicy one. Receptor Red Spice, he calls it. Mm-hmm. But and that bait's freaking awesome as well, particularly in winter. It is very good. It's caught some extremely big fish in winter. Yeah, I could go on and tell some stories, but they're not mine to tell. But
yeah, no, fair. I mean, yeah, you used that bait last winter, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, mate, nice. Do you mind me asking, sort of like the size of the fish? Did you weigh it? I know you're sort of. You get a bit sort of
yeah, it
purist,
was yeah.
And you don't want to say the weight, or I know a lot of the time you don't bother weighing fish.
No, yeah, I did weigh it, and it was a big fish. It's the biggest it's been out at, biggest fish that's come out of the lake. And but the most impressive thing about it is its age. It is absolutely prehistoric. And obviously since catching it, I've done a bit more digging about the stock and the history and stuff, and it is a proper old one. So it's a bit of a dinosaur. It's probably not going to be with us for much longer. So
nice, lovely.
You've whilst you haven't been fishing that much, you've had a little bit of success up Yateley, haven't you?
I have, mate. Yeah, I didn't. I didn't bag up, mate. I wasn't hauling. But I had one fish. I did 3 nights with a good mate. We went up there for a 3-night sesh. We had 3 fish out between us. I had 1, but it was well, a bit of a special one for me, mate. It was. I was pretty happy with my trip, put it that way. So, I mean, this year I've not done massive. I got to say, I've not done massive amounts of fishing, but I've caught quite a few fish. Like my fishing, I've done a lot of sort of evenings, afternoons, but I've literally been like nipping out for 1 or 2 hours. There's one of the match lakes on my club. It's got quite a good stock of carp, to be honest. They're very, very rarely fished for. They're dead. There's one sort of tree line margin, and they just sort of hang out there all day. And then I think they come out at night and they mop up all the matchman's bait. I've done a little bit of stalking there, and I've caught quite a few of these pretty little fish. It's been great for a bit of product testing, because we've got a number of little bits and pieces we've been working on, so it's been perfect for that. But sort of campaign fishing, I've not really had the time. I've done a few nights. I've taken the kids this year, which has been cool. Like a little bit of camping out, basically a barbecue, rods out. It's sort of got my fishing fix. It's sort of been an excuse to go fishing, basically. So yeah, no, I've been really looking forward to this, the 80 trip. Booked it, I don't know, probably back in March when we were allowed to fish again, or when sort of all the lakes reopened, we could fish nights. I think that was it. We made a booking then, and I think the closest booking you could get was end of August. You know, it's been manic. All the lakes have been jam-packed this year. So my mate, Jordan, I think you would describe him as a carp tiger. You like that phrase?
Oh, we got that phrase from Bill Cotton. He would call him a carp tiger. I'd call him a chav, I think.
Oh man, it's harsh.
You that's how you describe him, Pete. So that's
yeah, honestly. Well, the first time I went fishing with him, he had his socks tucked into his trousers. I had to apologise to the lake owner.
You know, there's some guys listening with their socks tucked in right now, and they're just like casually untucking them.
They're comfy. Leave them be. They're comfy.
Yeah, tracky bottoms and Nikes. Yeah.
But I mean, like, he is dead keen. He is absolutely dead keen. So I think we were probably allowed on the lake. I think you're allowed on at sort of midday to walk around, sort of like drop a bucket in a swim, and I think probably rods out at 1 o'clock, something like that. But he picked me up at 3 a.m. We had a long drive through the night. We got there nice and early. Sort of tiptoed around the lake a little bit early. And then disappeared off, and we were pretty lucky. So we'd gone for a social, really, and there's a swim, the island swim. Any of the guys who fish Sandhurst will know it, I'm sure. So I think it's one of the going sort of swims, one of the popular swims on the lake, and we managed to get in there. We were seriously fortunate. So there was a group booking booked on. So I think we were fortunate to get our booking with the group. So Help for Heroes. They were booked in, so with the war veterans, and I think quite a few of their party didn't turn up, so the lake was actually quite a lot quieter than it would have been on a normal booking. So we didn't have the competition like that for swims, so we were able to get on the island swim. And yeah, so we sort of like set up and everything. My mate had a result on the first sort of afternoon. It's like late afternoon. He'd sort of netted a 36-pound common. Which was an absolutely cracking fish. It was good fun. Weeded him up. I had to sort of like jump in and clear all the weed off his line and my waders, etc. Yeah, it was a good bit of fun, mate. He absolutely bagged a cracking fish. And then we went into the night. And to be honest with you, the following morning, I was a little bit despondent. I was thinking, I don't necessarily want to be in this swim. Like, good for a social, etc. I was contemplating a move already. Which would have meant anti-social fishing for the rest of our trip for the last couple of nights. And so, to tell a story. So, essentially, my mate had caught his fish at range. I was fishing like a little bit closer in. Now, I mean, this is a mega sort of busy day ticket, and it's not what I'm used to sort of on my fishing down here. So for each swim, you've got like your range of how many wraps like you can fish out, so you're never fishing over someone else's spot. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was like 18 wraps, 16 wraps, something like that in this swim. And my mate had his fish at range, and I was fishing closer in, and there was lots of fish sort of showing at range, and we had I built a picture up, so the lads who were in that swim in the morning, we were watching them all morning spomming bait out, trying to nick a last minute bite. The guys that came in opposite, they had put out shite loads of bait as soon as they'd got to the lake as well, so I had no doubt there was kilos and kilos of bait out there. So we sort of just straight away we went for single hook bait approach. My mate had his fish at range, so I literally went for an educated pub chuck. I wrapped up my rods to the maximum range, felt for a drop, and I was just fishing off the back of the guys who were opposite me on their bed of bait, essentially. I think pretty much everyone who gets up there I think everyone piles a bait, and not everyone. I think the majority of anglers get up there. I think they clip up to a range because they all want to fish at range. I think the fish, obviously, there's like a no man's land almost in the middle of the lake where the fish are almost sort of like a little bit protected, a little bit sheltered.
How many yards is that?
Like 16 wraps you're looking at. For 60, 64, 64, 70, somewhere between 60 and 70 yards.
People aren't fishing out there.
And what was that, sorry?
People aren't fishing at 60, 70 yards?
That would be your range limit from your swim.
Oh, because you would then be in someone else's territory.
Correct, yeah. And I think what they do...
Yeah. I see what you mean.
I think there's probably an area where, in theory, no one should be fishing.
Mate, see, I've never been to Sandhurst. I thought it was just, when you said out of range, I thought you meant, or however you worded it, I thought it was just like too far to cast. But obviously
No. Yeah, no. So we're talking... They set your range limit. So there's like, when you arrive at the fishery, there's like a big map of all the different swims. And then they've got a list of like your maximum range for each swim, which is quite good. It stops arguments, doesn't it?
How many acres is it?
Mate, I'm not sure, to be honest. It's not much bigger than my sort of biggest club water, mate. I'd say it's less than 20 acres.
Right. Okay.
But I actually don't know. I probably should know. I don't know.
Anyway, carry on. I'll Google it as you're chatting.
Okay. Yeah, it's not, like I say, it's not the biggest lake. I think there's about 400 fish. So I'm just going on knowledge from my mate here. And he sort of fished the place a couple of times in the past. He really enjoys it up there, so he knows a lot more about the stock than I do. I think there's about 400 fish. So anyway, go on.
It's 14 acres. There's 31 swims. Wow. There's over 400 fish. Mm-hmm. The venue record is 45 pounds. The average weight is 26 pounds. Maximum rods is 3. And there's bream to 16 plus pounds. Joy.
Damn, I didn't catch any specimen bream.
Did you not?
No.
Mate, 16 pound bream.
That's massive.
That's a unit, isn't it?
I've seen a photo of a big bream out of there and I was a bit surprised.
Seen some photos of me with big bream, haven't you, Pete?
Little bream, but they will come out, mate. Don't you worry.
I've had doubles, mate. I've had double figure bream. That's a big animal. Mate, that's a big animal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like I say, we caught some fairly big bream sort of back in our reservoir days, didn't we?
Yeah. Mate, I tell you what, jokes aside, I would like to catch a double figure, a 10-pound river bream. That is that is an animal, honestly.
There can't be many of them swimming around, surely.
No. I don't know. I'm sure, mate, there's probably some river anglers screaming at us right now, but I don't think there's many 10-pound river bream.
No.
They're a different animal in the river. I don't know if you ever caught a river bream, but they're different, mate. They're different.
Really?
Anyway,
mate, you've got me on a tangent now. They're like quite a wide, flat fish, aren't they? So they're going to be using that current and the shape of them. I imagine they're quite a different animal, yeah.
They're not wide at all, no.
You know what I mean? What, from fucking top of their back to their belly, like a dustbin.
Yes, yeah. Quite deep is the word you're on about.
Yeah,
the word you're trying to find. Yeah, they're very deep. Yeah, but they tend to be. They're any animal that's in the river. If you think it's constantly flexing its length of its body, isn't it? So they're all more muscular and more agile and just fitter, basically, I suppose.
Yeah, Bream Angler Chronicles. Right, mate. So yeah, back to my little tale. Essentially, I was fishing off the back of what I felt was on the back of other people's bait, just single hook baits. And when I say single hook bait, I haven't put out a little bag or anything like that. And I've literally just wrapped up to the largest distance. It's just getting on toward dusk now, so it's quite late. And I've just sort of felt for the drop, mate. So I say sort of out in front of me, there's like a big raft of Canadian, and then everything else. Yeah, there's like gravel. I didn't really led around like that. I didn't get the marker float out at any point or anything like this sort of in my session, but there were sort of like gravelly areas, but everything felt like it had a good layer of silkweed over it. I was reeling in lots of silkweed, and I was sort of like fishing. Basically, I was looking for the silkweed just off the Canadian. So yeah, I put all my rods, all three, out at range for the night. And then following morning, we hadn't had anything. As I was saying earlier, I felt a little bit despondent, thinking, I don't know if I'm fishing sort of the right swim here. I feel like I've just chucked them out in a bit of hope. We just sat down, had a little bit of breakfast, kettles on, and my middle rods absolutely sort of tore off. So our swims right next to each other, so I've sort of just like ran into my swim. I've lifted the rod up, and the fish has gone straight into a weed bed. So I've done the old sort of, I've like locked into the fish and walking back, and walking back to the water's edge, like reeling in, walking back, like gaining line, and the fish has sort of freed itself. Serious amounts of weed on the line, so the fight was just it wasn't exciting at all. The fish was free of the weed, so it was moving up and down my swim. I didn't really have much control over it. I wasn't really connected to the fish just because the amount of weed I had sort of on my line. And my mate sort of did the honours for me and sort of jumped in, cleared some of the weed off the line. At one point, I saw the fish. I remember saying to my mate, I was like, it's a big, fully scaled fish. To which he sort of turned to me and was like, well, there's only two of them in here. So there's a fish called the Armadillo Fish. It's called the Armadillo because it's a big, fully scaled fish. It's not an old fish, as far as I'm aware. It looks like a bit of a stocky fish. It's certainly not one of the old, dark, sort of Sandhurst mirrors that are in there. So I think it's a relatively new stocking. Chatting to the bailiffs, they were saying it's put on the weight consistently over the last few years. But yeah, no, I sort of netted that. I was pretty delighted. It's one of the sort of more sought after fish in there. Yeah, I was pretty stoked. We got some nice like water shots. It was nice having somebody there to sort of like hold the camera for me, someone who can take a photo. It's not something you get to do often. Sort of jump in and have your photo in the water with a fish. So yeah, mate, it was lovely times. I got to say, I was buzzing after that. I know I sent you a message, didn't I? Just a photo of the picture off the back of the DSLR. And then just sort of like soaked it in a little bit. I didn't put the rods out for a number of hours. I was just in a bit of a happy place. Had a couple of nights left on the trip. I was in no rush to get back fishing. I was quite happy. A little chat with you on the phone for a bit, and yeah, mate, it's just a lovely trip. I didn't catch anything else for the remainder of the time I was there. I painted a picture, mate, of what I thought was going on. On the last night, I was like, I need to make a move. Like, I need to make a move tonight. But I sort of painted a picture. I changed my rig approach. I'd moved from, I was fishing like a Ronnie spinner rig. I was fishing in quite large amounts of silkweed, so I moved over to hinges, and I tied up some sort of like quite high sort of chod sections just to try and get presented over it. It's barbed hooks there, and ever since our chat with Sean Harrison, and he was talking about like how the silkweed can like hinder a barbed hook from going up into the fish's mouth, I sort of took that on board, and I tied up, so like I say, some longer length hinges so I could sort of like make sure I was over the top of it. But it sort of came to no avail. Like I say, I had an image in my head that the fish was sort of holding out in this almost like a bit of no man's land during the days where I was fishing, and then I was getting liners through the night, proper liners as well. So I think I was getting trailers, to be honest, mate. I think there was a few fish probably trailing.
Oh no,
no. But that sort of indicated to me that they're sort of moving around more at night. So I was fishing a little bit closer range at night, and I was confident I had a plan, but it just didn't execute. So I'm not disgruntled that I only had the one. I was buzzing with the fish, absolutely made up with it. It's an absolutely beautiful fish, but yeah, there we go.
Well done, mate. Yeah, well done. Well, I bet they're under your rod tips, the fish. You get the lighters.
Probably.
Everyone's casting out. But no, well done, mate. You did well. I mean, obviously you're fishing down in Cornwall, and there are some big fish there. It's not as bleak as a lot of people would think. But on the other hand, you're not exactly spoilt for big fish, are you, down there in Cornwall? So I think is it all right? Is it fair for me to say that's even more special for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, a Cornish 30 is a seriously special fish, really, and they are few and far between. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of day tickets with some fairly, what I would say, undesirable 30-pounders, and I probably wouldn't want to, focus my time on catching them. Some of these the more wild, sort of untouched waters, like a Cornish 20-pounder is a good fish from there. Well, you know exactly what it's like. And the 30s are few and far between. Even upper 20s, there's not that many. I mean, they're not crawling up your lines, put it that way, are they? No.
No, so Cornwall is Cornwall is Cornwall. It is what it is. But nonetheless, some of those pits down there, they're special fish, aren't they?
Sure.
There's some special fish in Cornwall, and they might not be breaking any records, but doesn't mean that they're any less noteworthy. If anything, they're more noteworthy in my book. But yeah, anyway, we digress. Yeah, but well done. It's a nice fish, that armadillo fish. As I said to you, I've seen it before, I'm sure. And well done, mate. Good for you. Yeah, thank you. And I tell you what, I enjoyed a long session. Like a 72-hour session for me is... Woo-hoo! Yeah, I was thinking I'm going to be bored. I would have to move... In 72 hours, I couldn't just rock up and stick to one swim. I would be like hot-footing all over the spot. Unless I was on fish. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I walked around in the daytime. There's a few little like stalking spots and stuff. It's quite regimented, I think. I didn't want to push my luck, and it's got like a fucking serious set of rules. It's just set so busy, isn't it? You probably couldn't move around, could you? No, mate. We were there, so I think like there was a big group booking, and they only had half the number of people that turned up. So we were actually, it was like the one time I probably could have made more use of it. Right. Which is sort of regrettable now, but I mean, the fish were in front of us. This is the thing. The fish were in front of us. They were showing in front of us. They show all around a lake. I mean, 400 fish in how many acres? 400 14? Fish in 14 acres. You ain't far from them. Exactly. That's crazy numbers. But they're pressured fish. I mean, God, they're... Yeah. Like, seriously pressured. But yeah, anyway, I was buzzing anyway. And the fact it was on, like, homemade hook bait, I don't know, mate. Just felt good. Upcoming hook bait. Yeah, but it's one I've sort of spoken a lot about on the podcast. It's something we're going to sort of release this winter. It's a hook bait that I've used every winter. It's designed for winter, but I use it all year round, to be honest. Yeah, the flavors that we're going to release for that. So it's the flavor combo. Sorry, I'm kind of taking over here, Pete. You can pick back up in a minute and correct me if I'm wrong. The flavor combo you have used for many years, haven't you? Yeah. And what we've actually done, and perhaps we'll come on to our flavors in a moment, because it is a bit of a big deal, to be honest with you. But anyway, the flavor combos and what we've done with the flavors, we've gone very different from the rest of the current market, which is, to be honest with you, not great in our opinion. So yeah, those flavors will be available individually, and we're going to actually release the same hook bait that Pete caught that fish on, and has caught other fish on, in a ready-made format. But we're going to release the flavors individually as well. And I'll save it for when we come on to the flavors, I think. Yeah. But I very different from what else is on the market. And flavors, if you work with flavorists, You can do things and you can tweak things, and it's not just a case of you have to buy what is available and then resell it, which is what everyone else does. You can actually make things how perhaps they should be made. And I think maybe in days gone by, a little bit more focus was put on quality rather than profit. And I think these days, looking at the rest of the market offerings, it seems to be all about profit and not about quality. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. I'm getting on my high horse. I will stop.
Well, I think we'll probably talk about the upcoming flavours and baits in a moment anyway, so we'll go over it then.
Yeah.
What's different?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. That's my fishing sort of summed up, mate. That was my little trip. Happy Peter.
Definitely, yeah. Well done. Are you? So, what's your fishing looking like going forward? Are you going to try and get out and do a few more couple of hour sessions, that type of thing, or where are you at with things?
Do you know what, mate? So it's funny, isn't it? Because you've put a message out on Instagram. Just if anyone's got any questions, sort of like we can go through them, which we always enjoy doing. And quite a few of the questions sort of like surrounded winter fishing, didn't they? So it's on everyone's mind all of a sudden. And it's the same old story for me every single year. Everything for me quietens down in the winter time, and I'll probably do more nights through the winter, bleak fishing, get to the lake at dark, leave before it's really first light. Bleak, horrible fishing. But that's kind of already where my mindset's at, and I'm thinking about my winter fishing and how I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Like I say, we've got a few flavours we're releasing now, which we've sort of like tested. We've got other ones we're going to need to sort of test through the winter, and I've been thinking up little recipes and tweaks and bits and pieces I can do for that. So that'll probably take up a bit of my focus. I guess I'm not focusing on the fishing so much. I'm focusing on some little tweaks regarding bait and bits and pieces.
Yeah. Lovely. Shall we, we've had a lot of messages about this, about our flavours. So if anyone who doesn't know, we've recently released 3 flavours onto the range. They're on our website, baitbros.co.uk. You'll notice from the website we've removed the pop-up range that we did do because they've all sold out. We told you a while ago that was going to be a limited run thing. We might bring some back. We've got a new pop-up being released very soon called the Mystics, which are freaking good, and I could talk about them in a minute. And we've also got we haven't got a name for it yet, but the prototype that Pete caught is the Armadillo Fish on from Sandhurst, and as Pete said, he's used the recipe for that. He's used for years. We've tweaked it a little bit. The flavours that we're using now, in my firm opinion, I'm sure Pete will agree, are better than the ones before, but there's still the same aroma compounds, etc. within them. Release that, and we've got some more flavours on their own coming out, and most of our flavour range, not all, but most of them are going to be based around EA flavours, ethyl alcohol flavours, which are really missing from the market. I'm sure the home rollers, the bait enthusiast, or those of you just who make hook baits, you've noticed that there are not that many EA flavours, ethyl alcohol based flavours around these days. So we think it's missing from the market. Obviously, that base of flavour is absolutely superb in winter because it leaks off very, very freely into the water column. So most of our flavours are based around that, and they are very, very good. Freaking expensive for us. We're not making much money on this, and we have to buy in bulk. But we just want to shake up the industry in a way, and we're probably going to piss some people off. We're probably going to sound very big-headed, but we want to shake the industry up. I certainly do. I've got the kind of bit between my teeth, so to speak. I'm very focused on delivering the very best quality flavours that the market has to offer. And perhaps we'll go into the different ones on the podcast.
I think so. So, mate, these flavours are you. Well, put it this way for the listener. You have been on a bit of a journey with flavours, haven't you, for the last, I don't know, like 18 months?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
we're not so, I mean, you'll explain it better than me, but I mean, both of us have had a good sort of knowledge of flavors, and everybody understands sort of like what base they're on. If it's an EA flavor, is
Yeah.
it PG, is it oil based, and aroma compounds, and people understand sort of what's in them. But I know you've been sort of delving real deep, and a lot of these flavors are your creations. So I think it probably best if I'll quiz you from my end and let you wax lyrical. Does that sound good?
Go for it, mate. Yeah, go for it.
Cool.
That's not a problem. And just to, I mean, a lot of this will be like genuine. You haven't played that big a role in formulating them, have you? So, and you said earlier before we hit record, you were like, to be honest, mate, I've got quite a few questions about them that I want to know.
Yeah.
You've been testing them and using them, but you might not know all of the science around them. And obviously, we get a limited time to talk to each other, don't we, Pete?
Yeah.
We're both busy. I've been really busy because obviously I've been working on these flavors and different bait things alongside my businesses as well. So me and Pete don't actually get to talk to each other that much. So it's this podcast is a bit of an opportunity for us to catch up as well, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, like, it's really weird, isn't it? Because we find now it's best if we don't talk to each other, because then when it comes out in a podcast, it's actually really genuine, and we're not just feel like we're covering old ground, trying to put on a performance for people, because there's nothing worse. Mate, how many podcasts have we done like that? And we're like, oh, this is shit, and like give up.
We haven't published it.
No.
Yeah.
Seriously.
The amount of podcasts we've recorded, and we'll be like, well, we might have told someone about it. Like, so my capture, for example, if I told that story to Pete beforehand, I don't feel right telling it again, and vice versa. If Pete had told me about the sandsurfer, I knew he caught it, but that's all I knew. Like, it just gets very, very fake. So yeah, we've scrapped a load, haven't we? So we just kind of save it for the podcast anyway. But anyway, flavors, go for it. Let's go over the range, mate.
Cool. So we've got 3. I've got 2 personal favourites of the 3. So we'll go over them first. So I think the one that I like the most is the butter spice. So this is a blend, isn't it? This isn't, you've just sort of spoke to a flavour house and they've knocked up a flavour. No. There's more to it than that, isn't there? So we've got So we've got a number of different. I'm just going to let you go into it, mate.
Yeah, none of the flavours that we release are just from a flavour house that you can get elsewhere. So we've got 3 out right now. You will not get those anywhere else. The ones we've got coming up are simpler in as much as they aren't a blend of flavours and essential oils, but they have been made specifically for us under our specifications, with the exception of one flavour that's upcoming, which is actually a blend of 2 classic flavours, which are very, very famous and supposedly not available now, but perhaps I won't get into that. Let's just start with the flavours we've got out right now. Butter spice, you said that's your favourite, Pete. It's funny, everyone says that's their favourite. Everyone loves the butter spice. I think it's because it smells really, really nice. It's, as the name would suggest, it's a creamy flavour, hence the butter, and there is a spice back note to it. There's actually quite a few different essential oils within this bait, which give the spice element of it. The butter, the cream element, that's all from a flavour. It's on an EA base, an ethyl alcohol base, which, as I said before, ethyl alcohol is expensive. Compare that to the price of MPG, FCO. It's a lot more expensive, and I think this is why companies are not doing EA based flavors anymore, because they work extremely well. But anyway, it's on an EA base. If you like a bun spice, if you want a creamy kind of bun spice flavor, then this is the one for you. It's really complex. It's got many different levels to it. The nature of it will mean that it will have different notes and heart notes, top notes, heart notes, leeching off at different times. So what you'll find, if you have like a classic EA based flavor, which is just ethyl alcohol and then different aroma compounds, maybe a mix of esters. That's all going to leak off very, very quickly. What we've managed to do with this flavour, and the same with the other two flavours that we have out, or particularly the citry spice, because that's also EA based, is we've got the quick leak off, but we've also managed to factor in some other elements of the flavour which will be a little bit more prolonged, and they will basically last for a longer period of time. So it's a complex flavour. As I said before, it's unique to us. You will not get this anywhere else. You can smell it. It's a strong flavour. It's not one of these weak flavours, but it's not overpowering either. It's beautiful. Honestly, it's beautiful. Everyone that buys the flavours that gives us feedback, they're like, the butter spice just smells amazing. And yeah, it's a good one. It's a very good one. And the fish love it as well.
No, I think so. So the cream section of the flavour, is that on an EA base or is that on a PG base?
No, there's three parts of the cream section, basically. And I realise you don't even know this, Pete, so I'm probably breaking news to you. So there's a mix of solvents in there. So yes, there is PG in there, MPG in there, but it's at such a small level it will be dissolved within that base. And when I say a small level, I mean a really, really small level. The way that it works with flavours is you've got this base. I'm sure you've all heard of a base. What base is it on? Well, that is literally, as it said, it's something to add the actual different aroma compounds to, the lactones, the esters, etc. Now, we have one part of this flavour. This is probably not of interest to anyone, but I'll go into it anyway. We have one part of this flavour, which is an extremely high concentration within now the reason it's in there is because there's a lot of essential oils in there. Now essential oils are obviously going to diffuse into an oil based flavor better than they would do an EA or an MPG. There's also and I'm talking about a few percent of the flavor here, there's also the equivalent in an MPG base, and the reason being those aroma compounds are going to infuse within the MPG better than they would do something else. When that gets mixed together with EA, ethyl alcohol base, it basically comes down to nothing, and it just gets infused with the whole lot. Of course, there will be a minute separation, which is why you'll see on the actual bottle, shake before use. So you will get a tiniest amount of separation there. Shake it up before use so it all kind of works around together, and then you're going to get a good spread. You're going to find that with a lot of our flavours. And in fact, we've got a flavour coming out called Strawbermo, which is just phenomenal. Very unique. To my knowledge, there has been nothing like this on the market before in terms of part of that bottle is EA-based ethyl alcohol. The other part is oil. And then there's an essential oil in there as well. Actually, there's numerous essential oils in there. But there's numerous essential oils that make up the strawberry flavour, and then there's another essential oil on top, which is bergamot. The one we use is hideously expensive, but you wouldn't be able to see it because we use amber bottles, amber glass bottles, because it retains the quality of the flavour. It stops sunlight coming in, but also it doesn't have plastic leaching out into it. So you won't be able to see it too well, but the flavours will separate within the bottle. So it's not exactly 50-50, but let's just say 50-50 for argument's sake. You'll see the bottom half is EA flavour, the top half is the oil flavour. You need to vigorously shake that together in order for it to mix, and then you vigorously shake it and then immediately decant it into however much you need to put into your mix. That's the Strawbermo, by the way. That's not the butter spice. I'm just pointing out that we do have some flavours coming out that are even more of a mix. Back on track to the butter spice. Yes, you're right, Pete. There's a few different bits which are not based on EA, but most of all, it's 96% ethyl alcohol, basically. Yeah. Or at least, should I say, 96% of the flavour is infused with ethyl alcohol. Obviously, you've got the aroma compounds on that, so the actual ethyl alcohol percent, I couldn't tell you. But for all intents and purposes, you'd call it an ethyl alcohol based flavour.
Mm-hmm. No trouble. Now, here's a question for you. So these flavour compounds that are on the separate bases, can they sort of merge? Can they sort of like emulsify as one sort of basis, or is there always going to be that separation there?
Or emulsify is something different. I think you mean will they kind of synergize and mold into one?
Yeah.
You'll get a little bit of it. So, example, if you put an essential oil into ethyl alcohol based flavor, you're gonna get an element of mixture. There was one particular combo, and one of our flavorists, we use a few, said that you're gonna get about 4% of the essential oil infuse into the ethyl alcohol, and that'll be pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that would change between different essential oils. So hopefully that kind of spells out to you that no, not much is going to be diffused in.
Yeah.
It's the same. If you mix an MPG flavor with an EA flavor, you're going to get a little bit that will mix, but mostly not.
No. And the reason for asking that is for the guys who buy them, if they see the sort of separation in the bottle, etc. Which I know covered is it's normal. It's what we're sort of expecting.
If anyone buy, like we're soon going to be releasing the Strawbermo flavor. That flavor, honestly, I don't need to say this. Like, this isn't my main job. We just do this as a hobby. That flavor is freaking insanely effective. But it is, if you look at the bottle, if you shine a light behind it, you'll see through the amber glass. It is separated, totally separated. You need to mix, you need to shake that like buggery, and we've got clear, on the labels that I'm going to have printed, there's very clear signs on it. You need to shake it like crazy so it all infuses, and then it will go into this kind of milky state. Then you need to decant it, suck it out through a syringe or what have you, and use it whilst it's infused.
Yeah.
The fact we've got that flavour in two halves like that, mainly because the actual strawberry flavour, we need to have that on an oil base, because the strawberry flavour just in its own right contains quite a few essential oils. It contains 5 essential oils. To make that strawberry flavour, believe it or not. Most people think strawberry wouldn't be associated with things like clove or bergamot, but it is. They're in there on the very best strawberry flavours. They're in there. So that's the reason why it's on the oil base. As well as that, the effect that has in a bait, because you've got an oil based flavour, that's going to stay locked in the bait very efficiently. People will say it's more lent towards the gustatory side of things, the palatability sides, but the way it's formulated and the way it will leak out a bait, it will definitely be on the olfaction. It will definitely be attractive to the carp. You've got the creamy EA, which is quicker releasing, so you've got the quickness from the cream ethyl alcohol flavour, and then you've got the slower burn of slower the release, let's say, of the strawberry flavour, and then you've got the bergamot essential oil. And we use a hideously expensive one. You wouldn't believe how expensive it is.
No, I can. Because for the listener, yeah, me and Sam we've got a podcast joint account that literally has no money in it. You did some bad math initially with this one, didn't you?
Off the top of my head, yeah, I quoted you something that was not realistic, and we spent hundreds of pounds just on a bergamot essential oil. Yeah, it is the very best. Look, you could go to Oils for Life and get a cheap bergamot. I have compared it to this stuff. It's night and day. All essential oils are not equal, and this stuff is incredibly good. Sod it, I will tell people I use doTERRA bergamot essential oil, and you cannot buy it in bigger amounts than 15ml. So maybe I've revealed too much there. I haven't at all, actually.
No, not at all.
The real magic of the flavour is elsewhere. But yeah, if you want to use a bergamot essential oil, go to doTERRA. Honestly, I've used a lot of different essential oils. Bergamot essential oils, I've tested a lot of them. I've gone crazy on this stuff. I promise you that doTERRA one is serious stuff. It is very good. and it's what we use in this flavour. Yeah, there we go. I feel like I'm waffling, Pete. You're gonna have to keep me in line and keep pulling me back.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So we've sort of we've gone on a real tangent, haven't we? We've gone from the butter spice straight into the Strawbermo, which has some awesome graphics on the label, which we haven't actually released yet, but that'll be out soon. So I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll discuss my sort of like my next favourite, which is on a par, is the Cream Dream, which is what I mean, sort of like the baits I've rolled with it. Like I say, I'd put this on a par with the butter spice, and we'll talk about that. But first of all, mate, I am desperate to get to the toilet, which I'm not sure how I'm going to do. So for the listener tonight, I've got a little bit of a difference in my recording studio. It's quite embarrassing. Basically, I don't have a quiet space in my house and my office at work. We wouldn't be able to start recording until sort of 10 o'clock at night if I was to do it at work, just because of all the background noise. So that sort of knocked on the head. So I'm in a treehouse in my garden, which is, it's not your average treehouse, is it, Sam? I fucking knocked up something spectacular out here.
When I was a kid, I remember my treehouse. I thought I was balling with it. I thought it was an amazing treehouse, and Pete's is next level. I mean, you'd think as much, wouldn't you? Posh Pete, he's gonna make a good treehouse for his kids. Hey, it looks like one of these fancy lodges that you'd get next to an exclusive lake.
Oh,
that
yeah.
People would actually that doesn't even do it justice, does it? It looks like one of these. Have you seen the adverts for, what is that company that do like the woodland getaways? What is it?
I have no idea, mate.
Oh, they do these fancy like tree house holidays. Anyway, it's something that you'd pay a lot of money to stay in because it's all kind of artsy and
I know what you mean.
Hipster. Yeah, you'd pay a lot of money for it. Basically, his treehouse for his kids is pretty fancy. Mm-hmm. So don't feel sorry for him. He's living it up in the lap of luxury out in his treehouse.
Literally, mate. I'll tell you what, the amount of people who walk. So I live on a council estate in a pretty undesirable town in Bodmin. In Cornwall.
You're shattering people's idea of what you're like now.
I know, mate. And it's I've got like a railway embankment, which is sort of wooded, which is all very nice. And I've just chucked it's basically a Wendy house up in the hedge. Mate, it's pretty lethal. People are shocked when they see my kids on it because it's about 8 foot off the ground. And my 2-year-old, she's like straight up the ladder. There's no real safety.
It's a big unit. It's nice. Honestly, I'm not taking the piss. It is nice. Mate, you wouldn't expect to see it in a Bodmin council house, put it that way.
No. It's mate, it's got a balcony. We've had a barbecue out on the balcony before. And the best thing, mate, there's a little slide. So it's got like a little fire exit. In case I have a fire tonight, I can exit via the slide. Which is like a sheer drop into the garden. Yeah, it's cool, man. Right, jeez. I'm going to go for a wee. I'm going for a piss. And then...
Are you going, are you?
Hey, I need to go for a piss. Yeah, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it.
I'll keep them up. Just hang it out the side, mate. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm going. Right. You going to talk?
I'll tell them about... Yeah, I'll tell them about Cream Dream. So yeah, the Cream Dream flavour is different from the other two that we've got out at the minute. The other two are EA based. I spoke in detail about the butter spice. The other EA based, just quickly, is citry spice. This for me is the one I would be looking at using coming into winter. Definitely out of the current range that we've got available for sure. It's actually the same. It shares a lot of the same bases as the butter spice, but we've got a citrus blend on top of it. Again, it's totally unique to us. There's 3 different citrus fruits on top of kind of bun spice type flavour, and then the essential oils to match as well. There's also some added esters in there as well, which we add in after. It's a very unique blend, extremely effective, really, really good. Smells lovely, comes out lovely in baits. Obviously, it doesn't really matter to what it smells like to our nose, but it's very good. And that's also ethyl alcohol based. The Cream Dream is on MPG base. It's a creamy buttery Scopex type flavour. It's got a little bit of kick to it. The one that you'll notice is black pepper. There's black pepper essential oil on it. We also add in a decent amount of eugenol, isoeugenol, and some other bits. Very Scopexy with a spiced note at the end of it. It's a little bit more expensive than the other two flavors because some of the ingredients are very expensive that go into that. We're not a company that just charge the same thing for each flavor. We don't believe in that. We don't want to just rake it in. We will make minimum profit on the flavors, so they're all priced slightly different to one another to reflect that. But yeah, that's a superb flavor. These three flavors are very, very good, honestly. But they're an absolute fucking nightmare to get the different things and mix it all together. I don't know if Peter's back, and if he is,
I'm here.
You're here. You're there. You don't know this, Pete, and I'm breaking a little bit of news now, but I've actually... I can't say that I've got ill, because I haven't, but I've had a real issue with my chest since the winter. You don't know about this, do you, mate?
No.
So basically, for a while now, I first started noticing when I went to bed, I would just like have this little, like, it's not a rasp, it's not a wheeze, it's like a little squeak at the end of my breath when I was laying down. And I didn't... Pete's just laughing at my ill heart. Thank you, mate.
Got a little squeak. Just got me.
It's like a squeaky toy in my throat. Yeah. No, it wasn't like that. It was much milder. But I just noticed, I was like, I don't know what that... I didn't think anything of it. It kind of came and went and came. It's got a lot worse recently, and basically, long story short, without kind of boring everyone, it correlates to when I'm mixing up these different flavors. These flavors are dangerous. I think Jason Ryder actually sort of said a bit of a word of warning in one of our podcasts about being careful with flavors. And basically, I've been very careful recently. I wear masks when I'm mixing and things like that. But it seems to have left me with some kind of permanent lung issue. Now, bear in mind, look, I'm not just, syringing some out and putting it into a one egg, mix. I'm blending different flavors. I'm heating them up. I'm working with flavors intensively, 6 or 7 days a week. So don't be worried. Don't think you're gonna get any lung issues, but unfortunately I have, and it's a bit of a worry, particularly with COVID around, and obviously we won't get into the COVID thing, but no one wants to get COVID, do they? No matter your viewpoints on it, and I've got a real issue with my chest as it stands.
Mate, it's not good.
I'm getting better. No, it's not good. It's actually really, really bad. And I would like, if I was to do all this again, I would start with the protective breathing apparatus and only mix with it. Now, as it stands, when I'm mixing in mass and sometimes you have to lightly heat things to infuse them and mix them efficiently. And it's when you heat them, that is when they become a real issue. Most of the time, the flavors are okay, but it's when you're heating them up and mixing some things. Ironically, a lot of these things that I've heated and mixed are things that we won't be bringing out to market just because they weren't as effective as other things. I don't know how I got onto that, but
mate, that's not good.
No,
it's ridiculous.
No, my girlfriend, well, fiance now, she's really worried. She's not happy about it at all.
No, that in your house is seriously stinking.
The house and the garage are just, they're, forget it. They smell.
This is the thing, though, and I mean, every time, mate, and I mean every time we have a conversation, you're sticking your nose in a bottle of something, and we're having a chat about it. Do you know what I mean? And you're sort of, mate, you're it's a very good point. And I mean, everybody who's bought Flavours, the ones, especially Flavours on an EA base, you have a good sniff of that, and instantly it makes you go. It makes you want to cough, and that's not just flavours on an EA base. I mean, that's sort of a multitude of many flavours.
Not that many of them really take your breath away. Obviously, good old Tutti, the proper Tutti does.
Mate. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of those old flavours, the old Tutti, the old sort of Richworth Esterberry, which are things I'm pretty sure they weren't on an EA base, were they? They're oil based.
Well, we don't want look, because we're going to piss people off by saying, "Oh, we want to say." Look, we're bringing out a Tutti and blackcurrant blend, yeah. Well, I think people are going to be really surprised. Look, I'll be honest. Like, I think we are going to shake up the flavour industry. I really, really think we are. Look, don't get me wrong. Like, we're small. We're very, very small. Certainly compared to like John Baker or some of the other people that sell flavours. We're very small, but we are going to be churning out some serious flavours. And for those of you that want something different, you want the real stuff, I think we're going to take off. And I think I think we'll get a bit of a reputation for it. And I'm sure what will come with that is a lot of people being pissed off. I don't doubt it. But yeah, Tutti Frutti, that'll take your breath away, as will a good blackcurrant. Mm-hmm. We've got a blend coming out.
Well, should we sort of talk about that a little bit now?
We can do. I mean, we can do. We've got a blackcurrant EA, ethyl alcohol based blackcurrant, ready to come out. That is just superb for winter. Pete has been using a blackcurrant flavour in his winter pop-ups for many, many moons, many years.
Yeah.
And this version of this flavour is head and shoulders over certainly any blackcurrant flavour I've used. This is next level stuff. It contains a high level of buku or buchu, however you want to say it, essential oil, and it's the proper stuff as well. You can get some cheap buku, but this isn't. This is the real stuff. You can even get synthetic buku these days, which I've actually got some on my desk. Synthetic buku, it's not good, but we contain the proper stuff, and it's a strong EA based flavour as it should be. And that one will take your breath away, that's for sure. Obviously, we don't recommend like inhaling it deeply all the time.
No,
it's not good.
We don't recommend that at all. In fact, we probably ought to put a little disclaimer out there, given that you've got fucking COVID lung.
Wow, dude, I'm not got. I definitely don't have COVID lung.
I know.
I think, mate, when you're heating up liters of different flavors and blending them together,
I'm worried about you.
No,
you need to get a ventilated room. Do it outside on your gas burner, mate.
We need a proper ventilated factory, Pete. The way we're going, honestly, this is getting out of control. I'm doing all this stuff in my house.
Your kitchen.
We've got 3 different flavor houses that we're getting different things blended up by. On a few of the flavors, we're like, when I get them, they're made to our specifications. We've tweaked them just a ridiculous amount. No one is testing flavors like we do, by the way. They just aren't. But we've tweaked them and things. But some things we blend in-house, meaning I blend them in my house. And it means heating them up ever so slightly. Obviously, you don't want to boil them or heat them up too aggressively. But if you just add a little bit of heat to them, things will infuse a lot more efficiently. And that's why I've got this issue. So I don't want people to think, oh, shit, I don't want to buy their flavours because they're going to burn my lungs out. It's not going to happen. I promise you.
Yeah, mate, I'm shocked. Cool. So the blackcurrant tutti blends, like you say, that's been in sort of like a staple pop-up that I've spoken about many, many, many times on the podcast that I use every year, and I've got 100% confidence in it. And I've wanted to get an EA blackcurrant in there for a little while. Mainly, again, we'll talk about this in a minute when we cover listeners' questions, which we're yet to do yet. This is going to be a long episode, mate, with all the questions as well. But a few people spoke about a few people spoke about sort of winter fishing, and a few people have spoken about like hook bait formulation. So one of the things I really wanted to do, so the blackcurrant and the tutti that I've used for a long time have been DT baits, and they're both on a PG PG base. So I've wanted to get an EA flavour sort of alongside the PG, just to have different sort of leakage rates basically in the cold water. So an EA flavour is going to leach off much quicker than a PG flavour in the cold water. So that's where this has come about. Obviously, you've spoken about the the Cream Dream, which is essentially now I'd gone for my piss at this point. So it's a creamy flavour, Scopexy, with a few flavours on a few different bases, and then you've spoken about the black pepper royal and the additional sort of piperine which you added to it, which is, I love it, mate, because in the years gone by I have had serious success, and I know you have as well, with that combination of Scopex and black pepper royal, and I'm sure loads of guys listening, that'll be something they've used lots, especially over the winter months, in a bird food bait, for example, which is an absolute sort of favourite amongst carp anglers. Mate, have we covered the citry spice, which is the third one which we've got at the moment?
We have, but just to backtrack, the Cream Dream is not on a few different flavour bases at all.
Okay.
It's purely on PG.
Okay, cool. Covered that.
It's not on a few different. The other ones are. I've covered that earlier, but and I covered the citry spice as well. That's right.
Yeah, no. Do you know what? So I'm completely going. It's just waffling now. I was convinced there was an oil-based flavour in the Cream Dream as well. So, but that was probably one of the earlier prototypes, wasn't it? Okay, that you sent me.
It's PG. It's propylene glycol, and it's got essential oil in it as well, which I told them. I think I told them. If not, I can do. It's got black pepper essential oil in it. Mm-hmm. It's got extra pepperine as well. Yeah. Pepperine as well, which is like the active overriding compound within black pepper oil, or black pepper in general, to be honest. But no, it's just PG based. It's not a blend.
Cool. So here's one for you. So this is certainly with me. I would not add another essential oil or anything to that. For me, that is sort of like, Scopex and black pepper for me has always been an absolute favourite. I wouldn't add anything to that. And I don't know about you with the other flavours. I know you've designed them to sort of work, all the different aspects of each flavour you've designed to work in synergy with each other. If people are sort of toying around with adding essential oils or anything, would you sort of advise them sort of like a bit of caution when doing that? If people wanted to tinker, or would you sort of say, you know what, a lot of time and effort has gone into this combination, and I'd recommend using that purely as it is?
I'd definitely say don't. Look, a lot of time and effort, and that is an understatement. Like, this is all we're doing. This is all I'm doing. Like, honestly, it's. I was spending too much time on it. So yes, I would say stick to it. It's a proven thing. But like, if you want to tinker and you want to get your own, look, we're not selling much of this. We don't sell to many people. There's probably no one using this flavour on your water. I think that's probably safe to say. Mm-hmm. But if you still want to put your own stamp on it, regarding the Cream Dream, if I didn't have all these other things in the pipeline that I was experimenting with, and I was just, let's just say someone said, how could you make that Cream Dream better or different? I don't know if I could make it better. Possibly could. Probably could. Who knows? Sky's the limit, right? I would start with clove. I would add some clove essential oil to that blend. Look, I don't know. It might make it worse. It might never work. But due to a few things, I'm not going to get into the deep weeds of it in this podcast. But yeah, if I wanted to add an essential oil to the Cream Dream, I would add in clove.
Yeah, okay. And I think it's safe to say also, if people are playing around with it, drop us a message and you'll get back to them and be sort of helpful and honest, I guess.
Yeah, but we're getting a lot of messages, so that's... Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was fine when we didn't have as much of a listenership, but it's getting a bit more it's getting a bit more full on. But yeah, we will help. The problem is we're getting messages like, I'm fishing this water, can you give me a mix and a flavour? Like, it's like we can't do everything for you. We'll give you some advice on your own mixes and your own ideas, but we can't give a bespoke bait consultancy to everyone, can we?
Mm-hmm.
It's just getting a bit silly.
Cool. And so Citry Spice, you went over.
Yeah, Citry Spice, I went over again. Quite a decent percentage of that flavour is the same basis that we work off of the bun spice, but we have a citrus element rather than the butter. It's very complex flavour, works really well. Again, I like if it was me and I was sticking to one of these three flavours more for winter, I would be moving on to the Citry Spice. They will all work phenomenally well, but that Citry Spice, like, mark my words, and we'll get more catch reports on that, Pete, I guarantee. When the water temperatures really drop, that Citry Spice will work very well, as will a few of these flavours that we've got coming up. These EA flavours, Cornish cream, blackcurrant EA, the Strawbermo, these will work extremely well in winter.
It's exciting.
And Citry Spice is one of them as well. But don't get me wrong. Like, the cream dream will work very, very well. The butter spice will work extremely well in winter. They will. It's just, I think they will tip them, to be honest.
The Citry Spice, just like, you get that on your nose and it just screams to me like a liver bird food bait. Like, it would just go absolutely perfect. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I mean, when you're just sort of designing these, are you thinking of sort of certain like base mixes that you would add these to?
Yeah. So initially I keep it neutral because I can't test a flavour and think, oh, that'll go great with like a liver and above it, because how do I know it's the flavour that's doing well and not this new bait I've just created? You know what I mean? So everything is tested very fairly. Everything is tested extensively. Probably too much. It's probably just a ridiculous thing that we can't sustain. But anyway, make the most of it whilst we can. And that is my goal, by the way, Pete. I don't know if I've said, like, I want to go hard now. I'm still young. I don't have kids here living with me. I've got, I can fucking spread myself thinly. I want to get the best freaking flavours made. The best. And then I want to keep these recipes, and then just so I can do the hard work now and then use them forevermore. And we'll bring them out as well and sell them to people.
Definitely.
And that's the plan. That's the plan.
Mate, you've got a fire, I can tell. And I know. We've been talking about these flavours and stuff. And all right, Sam is, we've said this so many times, you've got like this personality where you just go fucking balls deep in something. And if you're ever going to do something with Sam, like, he can be the most annoying person because he will take it so fucking serious. Like that time we went up Snowdon, like, you wanted to walk up Snowdon, we went in the middle of fucking winter when there was snow everywhere, and like, Sam is kitted out, he has got all the gear, it's so serious about it. Two
people died, not that this is funny, but two people died the week before we went up. It was proper whited out deep snow.
I know, you take anything you do like 100%, which we often sort of laugh at, because some of your little missions you do over the years have been sort of quite comical when you look back at it. But no, you've really dived into this, and I know you've got a real sort of passion for it, which is cool. And I'm glad I can quiz you about it on the podcast as well. Go on then, mate.
Definitely, mate.
Whilst we're on it, so this hasn't been mentioned. I know you've sent this to a couple of guys, listeners, who are absolutely good as gold and have supported us from day one. But we've got a powdered additive coming out as well, which is something we're both pretty excited about.
We'll keep it fairly brief, mate. I don't want people to think we're just like giving a big...
Okay, yeah, it's a good point.
A big advert. We're not. Like, this is just what we're passionate about right now, because guess what? We're going out testing this stuff, and it's like... I'm so excited about this because, look, I wouldn't be excited if we were producing shit flavours that weren't getting the results. I'm excited because, like, we're really taking this somewhere, and it's very exciting. But forget the flavours. This llama dust, which is a powder, I've never used anything like it, if I'm totally honest. And I will put that on the label. Like, it's extremely effective. I use it on fucking everything now, literally everything. And anyway, I can't remember what your question was, mate. I've gone off on a tangent with it.
I
sent him a tester.
We're shilling our fucking products on everybody. I thought we'd mention it. But it's one of the things I really regret about my little Yateley trip recently up to Sandhurst. I didn't fish. Honestly, I just fished single hook baits.
That llama dust, honestly, I would bet on that everywhere. I really, really would.
Got a comment on there. So there is no reason it's called llama dust. We're not sort of milking llamas and dehydrating.
There is a reason. Yeah, there is.
Okay, you gonna share the reason or?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all, mate. Not at all.
But anyway, it's something we're both actually pretty excited about.
It's nothing to do with llamas, put it that way. Okay. It's a real complex blend, actually.
Yes, right, very much so. It's quite oily, quite sort of fatty. I've used it in sort of solid bags with 100% of the product, and I wouldn't recommend someone doing that because it can sort of like congeal, I guess, when it's mixed with waters. Mate, solid bag fishing, that is a lot. I've done a lot of that the last few months. I've just been fishing for a bite at a time.
That's not you classically, is it? You're not really a solid bag guy.
No, I've got quite into it though. It's easy, isn't it? Like simple rig. I say it's easy. Simple rigs. I'm not worried about the rigs. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like not in a size 8 hook, size 6 hook onto a hook.
See, it's interesting.
Go on.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you wouldn't use it in a solid bag. I would.
On its own.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Have you, mate? So, and this is the reason why. Because I've obviously tied solid bags up and I've sort of like done tank tests and things. And the product, it congeals a lot, which I'm guessing has to do with the oil content in there.
You've got, there's a cheese, so in the llama dust, there's a cheese powder within there, which is obviously, there's a decent amount of fat in there. It will pack together for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's a bad thing. This stuff is so versatile. Literally, I will just put a little splash of water in a container, put the powder in, mix it with and I'll make a paste, and I'll just feed it to my fish, and they go freaking nuts for it. And and I've said this to you several times, Pete, because I'm like always phoning you up so excited about this, or messaging you so excited with videos. They will carry on searching around the pond for this and the tank way after it's been fed, and they don't. There's very few products they do that with, but they're eating it and they're actively looking around. Anyway, why is that relevant? Yeah, it's fairly fatty and it does congeal somewhat. It definitely doesn't just disperse into the water, but I think that's good. Unless you're putting it on a fish's head, you don't want that to happen. And even then, it can be too much. You can definitely oversaturate the carp's receptors. Like, you really, really can. This is not spoken about enough, and it's something I want to speak about more, actually, going forward. Maybe now's not the time, but you definitely can. It will congeal, but bits will come off. There will be food signals coming off. Figure out you're putting it out into the lake. It's a real fishing situation. You've maybe got some fry or some small roach or something coming in, picking bits off, coming in, pecking. You're gonna get it spread apart. You're gonna get little bits floating up. Different parts of that powder will have different densities, and some will float up, some will stay neutral, some will sink, and it will disperse quite nicely. So yeah, what if you put it into a glass or a bowl at home? It's going to sit on the bottom and not do a great deal. It's not going to like cloud up and explode, that's for sure. No. Real situation though, and there's a lot of different attractors that are coming off that you can't see, but that's going to stay intact for a long time, enough for a carp to come in and snaffle it up. So sorry, mate, I don't mean to like be contrary or anything like that, but
no, wait.
I would use it. I would use it in a solid bag. I really would. I'd chuck it out there. I wouldn't give two hoots that it wasn't all
just 100%
being soluble.
Like 100% that in a solid bag with a hook bait. Yeah. You see, so that put me off because it does congeal, and it's like you say, it's not too soluble, and you leave it overnight in a tank, and it's a congealed sort of lump. And I was just worried about the hook point, but I've been using it with pellet. Some little 2mm pellets to great success. With that, I've been adding sort of like wheat germ. Like you say, if you do use it on its own, and you add wheat germ to the mix. Well, it's wheat germ, something I use quite a lot in like a solid bag or a little stick mix or something to try and bring things up through the water column. I often find it locks it all in and it won't release the wheat germ. It stays in that sort of lump. But when I use it with a bit of pellet or something, then I feel it comes into its own. And what I've recently done is I've just knocked up some, like I've only done literally a couple of egg mix in a very, very simple 50-50 mix. Literally a semo soya mix with some bird food, and I've used the old llama dust at 20%. And I'm really looking forward to using it in boilie form as well. So, like, you've been using it as a paste a lot, and you can literally add nothing to it, just a little bit of water, and it makes literally a fantastic paste. You can add it to...
And it doesn't blow.
No.
It's very palatable. They freaking love it. They search for it like crazy after. That's all the hallmarks of an amazing product. Like, honestly.
Yeah. It actually is
Sorry. I don't mean to lay it on thick. It's just I'm really, really proud of it.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you what, mate. That's enough of us shilling, like what we're sort of excited about and what we're going to be sort of it's
so horrible, isn't it? It's horrible because it just sounds like we're just trying to sell some product. It's not that, like, that's just all I want to talk about because it's all I've been immersed in for the last God knows how long.
I know
18 months odd.
You've been just gagging to talk about it, and it's so many phone calls, and we're just like, mate, just save it for a podcast. Save it for the podcast. Which is cool, and the llama dust as well is something that's we're excited about. Anyway, right, moving on. Listeners' questions. Should we go into it?
I think we should. Yeah, I've been recording for nearly 2 hours.
I know this is going to be a long one. But we've not had a good catch up for a while, mate. No. Do you want me to go through them in the order that you sort of sent them through?
Go through it. Yeah, I tell you what, I need to go and grab a few beers out of the fridge.
Cool. Right, rig mechanics, mate, from Throwback Carp, and his response was just rig mechanics.
Yeah.
So let's just sort of go into it.
Right.
What are you looking for? You're fishing a bottom bait out of the bag from your Kenny Gates, whatever bait it was that you're absolutely in love with. What are you looking for from a rig?
It's rare that I fish a bottom bait for a start. I usually fish in weed or something like that, so I don't usually use a bottom bait. If I do, here's my rig mechanics. Fucking big bait, fucking big hook that dangles down behind it. It's going to catch hold in their mouth. That's my rig mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a bit of shrink tube. I've got a bit of tubing on the shank, so the just so it holds it. Literally, my rigs are shit. If you looked at them, you wouldn't be impressed, put it that way. My bottom bait rigs, that is. My pop-up rigs, it's either a hinge stiff, which is mostly what I use, or I'll use a choddy. I will chuck a choddy in thick weed, and I'm confident in it, very confident in it, and I will happily put that choddy off of the baited spot. I will in an ideal world, I will feed up a spot, get that rock in, and then I'll see where the fish come in and out, because they do. They come in and out. They don't just sit on the spot. They will chew a load, they'll go out, and they'll come back in. Not always, but sometimes there's a route they go out, and there's a route they come in. And if they think there's a morsel that they've missed on the way out or the way in, they will pick it up. And generally, they're moving when they pick it up, and they're easier to hook. This is obviously if you have the luxury of watching them, which I'm lucky enough to have on 2 of my waters.
I think that's I think the way you just described that then was sort of fantastic, mate, because you've not put sort of like the thought into it. I've not asked you a question about that, but I think that is so true of sort of like a carp's behaviour. And the way you've just put it there, I think was really, really quite, I don't know, just sort of like in tune with the fish, if that makes any sense. I think that's a really good way to put it.
Pete's drunk.
Yeah, I am. I'm envisaging life as a carp right now.
Drunk.
Mate, I think you put that brilliantly. I really do. I respect that.
I think I've just hooked Pete if he's a carp. Yeah. It is the way it is. But look, back to your question. If it's a bottom bait, for me, it's not fancy. It's a big hook. I use big hooks. I use big baits. As I said, I've got a bit of the shrink tube over the eye that kicks it just to create an angle. That's it. Simple. Sharp hooks, big bait.
Yeah.
That's how I'm fishing.
I mean, so okay, bottom bait for me now. Rig mechanics. I've gone sort of pretty old school, mate. Again, like you were saying, I fish a lot now. I'm not using big baits like you. I gotta say, I'm not talking 26 millers here. I'm using a mix nowadays of 15s and 18 mils because it's what's easy for me to get hold of. I like feeding a different size, and I'm cool with that. And quite often, I'll fish a smaller bait on the hair. So I'm using. I can't remember the name of the hook. Is it a Parapoint? Is it ESP hook? Which I'm fishing a size 6, and it's quite a traditional styled hook. It's got a very straight eye. I think it's got a lovely sort of like curve into the hook to a straight point. I like a straight pointed hook. And I've really shortened my rigs down. I'm fishing a long piece of shrink tube at the moment off the eye of the hook. So I'm really extending the shank of the hook, which I've got confidence in. And I'm using I'm using some shrink tube on that, or not shrink tube, some silicone sleeve or whatever you want to call it, on the shank of the hook, and I'm fishing it right down at the back of the curve of the hook. Sort of like, I guess it was like Kevin Nash made a big deal of that back in the day. So it's sort of blowback sidey on with a bit of silicone sleeve, but that's right at the base of the shank of the hook. So it's almost sort of like flipping the hook around if you were to have a hook or if you were to have a bait on there which has got no gravity or no sort of like water dependence on it. It would really, if gravity was a factor, pull the hook around. I've gone quite old school in that, and I've done quite well. I've recently met up with my mate, and we did it. He's been working up in Honiton, so I've been doing a few overnighters just across the border in Devon. So we've done some like day ticket lakes, like for the guys who are interested, like Digger Lakes up in Devon, and Colebrook fisheries as well. And I've had a few fish out doing that, and I've just been fishing bottom baits straight out of the bag, buried in the silt. Like, I am convinced as well. I've been fishing sort of like helicopter style, but I've shortened my rigs right down recently, and I've been getting some real solid hook holds, and I've just been confident of fishing in the silt, which has been sort of refreshing because it's kind of like going back to how I used to do it back in the day. Pop-ups, big fan of a Ronnie rig, to be honest. I like a Ronnie rig. It's super simple. It catches fish, and a stiff hinge as well. I do love a stiff hinge. Chods, I rarely fish chods. I've been moving over to leg clips as much as I can, more than sort of like more than a helicopter presentation. Just for a confidence point of view, I like fishing a leg clip. I like the convenience. But yeah, and I've shortened my rigs down a lot recently. But that's just personal experience. I do think if you're fishing on fish and they want to eat your bait, I just think less and less I worry about my rigs. I just go with what I'm confident in, and I think you're going to catch a fish. I think you'd agree with me on that, would you?
Yeah, maybe.
Right, next one, mate. From Ian D. Walker, long time listener. Recap on the Bath interview / podcast. Really good listen. So go on quickly, mate. Give us a little recap. Okay, I'll go in. First of all, in-person podcast. First one, wasn't it?
Yes.
We normally do these over Zoom, online. So we've gone out there. We emptied our bank account on some new sort of recording equipment, haven't we?
Yep.
How was it in person, mate? How was it for you?
I mean, as you said, like, we have splashed out on proper in-person recording equipment. I think we've got the best audio for obviously you've got the cord.
Grassroots podcast.
For a podcast that roves around, yeah. I mean, you've got Corder and Nash. They do have better audio than us when we move around, for sure. But I think we nailed it, mate. I mean, that was a big worry of me, of mine. It was a big worry of yours. We spent a lot of money on these mics and this mobile mixing track thing, recorder type thing. I don't know what the hell you'd call it. But it worked well, the recorder itself. In terms of the actual interview and the podcast, yeah, outside of my comfort zone, because I'm used to doing it like we're doing it right now, which is just basically talking into a microphone behind a computer. I'm in my chair, I'm leant back right now. It's just very easy.
Exactly.
I've got a mic
for the
boom.
listener's sake.
I've got a mic boom that moves with me.
Yeah.
It's very easy.
It's how you conduct your business, isn't it?
Yeah.
From like a business point of view as well. So you're in your comfort zone.
Oh, I've got a very comfy, recline chair. Yeah, I do calls in this all day. It's what I do for a living. Not about fishing, about other things, about nutrition, biology, etc. That's what I do. Consult people with that. So yes, I'm in my comfort zone. Going out was very different, but at the same time, it was good. Going around the Bath factory, the British Aquafeeds factory, fascinating. They have got some. I mean, to me, as an outsider going in, it looks like some space age shit that they've got going on there. We had to like scrub our feet, and people got to wear hair nets in there, and it's very clinical.
Oh wow! Okay.
Oh yeah, two sets of feet scrubs you go through, and it's full on. And it was
when we say laboratory conditions for creating a lot of these like hydraulic slates and etc. Compared to the guys who are doing a sort of like a really good job at home, and then sort of like got some demi-johns and some sort of beer fermenting equipment.
Yeah,
we're talking proper.
This is laboratory condition. This is a different level. You're just not going to be able to create consistent hydrolysates at home. I know I've got some diehard listeners. I know Ray in particular, poor Ray, always messaging us. He's a good lad, is Ray. He's a good lad. I'm sure he's producing great hydrolysates. I'm sure he is, but the consistency side is obviously going to be a little bit touch and go. This is next level stuff, and oh my god, they are working on some very interesting hydrolysates. Yeah, they've got some good stuff coming out. One, I haven't told you about this, Pete. We'll talk off air.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Go on.
That is okay. No. Because I won't retract from it. People can listen to the podcast. What I was going to ask has been covered on the podcast. It's neither here nor there, mate. I'm just filling up this episode with crap that they can listen to, which isn't crap on the Bath interview. So I'm just going over old ground. Right, next question. Are you ready for it?
Ready.
James Bygrave has sent this one in. So natural baits, i.e. corn, chickpeas, etc. So open-ended question. I know you like to pre-bait with particle, mate. Is it mainly a pre-bait tactic with you for these natural baits, or are you fishing it as sort of part of your mix when you're actually putting a rig in the water?
Yeah, spring, summer, I'll use particles. Well, late spring, summertime, autumn as well. I'll use particle. Yeah. I bulk out my feed with it. I mean, I use particle, pellet, and boilie this time of year. That's what I'm using. In terms of what would I use, depends what I'm trying to do. I think groats are underused. I like the fact they give out a milky kind of cloud. So I use a lot of groats. Hemp is great. Maize is great. Sweet corn is great. In terms of chickpeas, I haven't used chickpeas for fucking years, but I went for a phase when I was very young, or certainly a hell of a lot younger than I am now, of food dyeing my chickpeas. So chickpeas dye really well, so you can use some food colouring on them and you can make them whatever colour you want. So I remember doing that with chickpeas down, I think that was Penvose. Do you remember Penvose?
Oh, God, yeah, I remember that. Penvose.
I think they've seen a few tins of my chickpeas which have been dyed. But yeah, good.
Yeah, curry powder.
Yeah, maples. Maples are another good one. Underused.
Maples. This year I started using maples. I bought a load of maples, mate.
Yeah. Maples.
And I left them in the sunlight in a clear bucket. And they were in a plastic bag in a clear bucket, right? And they, obviously, some moisture got in there and they sort of like condensed and whatever with the sun, and sort of like more moisture built up, and then they all sprouted, mate. And I had a serious like labyrinth of maple plants in this bucket. It's something I've never seen before.
Maples and groats. Good combo.
I like maples. They're old school, aren't they? But they're cool. We can use them as a hook bait.
Yeah.
I like a chickpea, but cooler than a chickpea, I'd say. More carpy.
Okay.
Okay.
I need a piss. So you announce the next question and you answer it, okay?
All right. Making pop-ups for fishing as singles. So this is from Darren Hall. So thank you, Darren. So making pop-ups for fishing as singles. So this is something I do quite a lot, to be honest. So a lot of my fishing, I've got more and more and more confidence in fishing singles as the years have gone on. And making pop-ups for fishing singles. So there's numerous things you can take into account here. So we've discussed already in this episode about flavours on different bases. So you can take into account what the flavours are doing for you in that mix. You can use flavours on different bases. So we've spoken about EA flavours, for example. So that's something. So my long-standing pop-up mix, I've long wanted an EA-based flavour in there. So it's been a winter go-to of mine. I've wanted an EA-based flavour in there, which is hard to come by. They really are hard to come by, especially in the fishing industry at the moment. So I want an EA flavour in there, and I want a flavour either on an oil base or a PG base, which is going to have a slower leak off. So that's something to take into account, is different flavours within your mix on different bases, so they're leaching off at different sort of time periods in the water, especially in the winter time. That can come into its own. And then you've got sort of like your old school sort of attractors, so you can discuss sort of betaine if you feel that is attractive to carp. You can add sort of like betaine in the mix. You can look at different essential oils, and you can ask yourself the question, what are they adding for you? So an example with essential oils is you can look at their sort of specific gravity, and you can decide whether essential oil is going to be leaching off and it's going to be going up through the water column. Is that essential oil you added going to be bringing the flavour out with it, and it's going to leach sort of like the flavour as well out through the water column? Is it going to be denser than water? Is it going to sink through the water column? Are there certain liquids you could add to your pop-up? Off the top of my head, I've been using a CSL, which is really dense, and I know that's leaching out of the bait, and that's obviously heavier than water, and that's dragging the flavour down. It's dragging any other little goodies in there down to the bottom of the lake bed. So there's all sorts of different bits and pieces you can add to your pop-ups, and you've just got to decide and think about what they're doing as you put them in your mix. So are you back, Sam?
Yeah, I'm back.
He's back. Making pop-ups for fishing as singles. I was just discussing different flavours leaching off at different sort of time periods, essential oils, what they're bringing to the mix. Basically, what are you putting those ingredients in your hook bait for? What are they bringing to the party is what I'm trying to talk about.
Is this in context of winter hook baits or just general?
No, this is in general.
Right.
But it's for fishing as singles. So what's it bringing to that hook bait as fishing as a single?
So I'll give people a real simple formula, right? Because we could get very technical with this. If I'm being totally honest with you, I could say add X, Y, and Z and make it a very complicated mix, and we could sell those products. And if you start off, you need a good quality base mix. You need a good quality base mix for the pop-up. This is really, really important. The hook baits that we sell, like that base, the mix of the pop-up, before we add in all the good stuff, is extremely good in its own right. It's very, very high in a multitude of different milk proteins, which are very attractive to the carp. So we're starting off with a superb base mix as it is. That's really important. On top of that, I really honestly think you can keep things very simple. So I know this isn't about winter, but we're going to lead into winter. I'll give you a very, very good mix that you will absolutely clean up during the winter time with this. And it's inexpensive. It's simple. Go ahead, get a good quality pop-up base mix. Go to Bath British Actual Feeds. They do a good pop-up mix. Go ahead, get their pop-up mix. You've got that. Crack in your egg. Guessing you're going to do a 1 egg mix. Liquid-wise, literally, just add either... Oh, gaff, I feel horrible saying this because I don't want to be like a sales guy. But this is just what I would have faith in. Use our Strawbermo flavour. or use a combination of our cream and our strawberry flavour, which is similar to the Strawbermo, but it's different. Or use a blackcurrant flavour. If you wanted the cheapest way, just buy our blackcurrant, buy Bath pop-up mix, and then buy a little bit of citric acid, which is very cheap. Put that into a hook bait, and I honestly think if you put that in the right place, you fish well. You will outcatch most people on the lake if they're using conventional pop-ups, conventional baits. Like, you don't need to overcomplicate it. You really, really don't. If you use a genuinely great flavour, you don't need that much more else. As I said, citric acid will actually give it a prolonged and different attraction to it. So I would add in a bit of citric acid. It's cheap as well. And a pop-up mix, that's it. Like that is honestly what I would do. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm literally fishing like that. Yeah. I'm not adding in mad shit. I'm not adding in lots of different stuff. And yes, okay, I'm testing flavours. Part of it is that, but the other part is I just don't need to.
So, yeah, and sort of taking it away, I guess, from our flavours, sort of like what I've done very well in the past is sort of like a good squid and octopus with lashings of embutyric acid. I've done very well with that. I've done well with that, combining it with some black pepper oil in a hook bait. But again, you've got to ask yourself the questions, what are those things sort of like doing? I know I've done it and I've done the research, and I know in my head what that's sort of bringing to the mix. I know one which over the years, and I'm talking years gone by when we were fishing, you did very well on, Sam, was John Baker plum, wasn't it? Again, just with some citric acid. I know that was one of your sort of go-to pop-ups, and sort of like, especially in the winter time, that was something you used to use a lot of the time. Absolute sort of classic combination. Dead easy to do. There's no complications. Like you say, citric acid is dirt cheap.
Absolutely.
We're not talking a lot though, are we? Per 1 egg mix here. I use sort of like about half a teaspoon, I call it.
Yeah, pop a gram in.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, look, do a gram to an egg. Yeah, you do. Look, yes. So, I know what you're trying to do, Pete. You're trying to. I'm not trying to say buy
I don't
our
want it to be a sales podcast,
no,
mate.
Look, but John Baker's plum, great fucking flavour. It's not going to have a quick, readily leak off rate in the winter, because it's not on the right base for that. But still, John Baker plum is one of the very best flavours that has ever been produced. It is. It's up there. It really, really is. And I would honestly say our flavours are up there alongside it. But buy John Baker's plum. Look, it's more proven than our flavours. It's caught more fish than our flavours have. Fact. So yeah, don't buy our flavours. Go to John Baker, buy his flavours.
And the British Aquafeeds pop-up mix is insanely buoyant. It's brilliant, to be honest. Like, I've been rolling sort of like a 14 miller on its own will hold up a choddy for like a few days, no worries. Cool. Right, moving on, dude. Cheeky Dinks has messaged in, hearing more and more about pheromones. What's your opinions? Dude, I'm going to leave that to you.
Yeah.
I have no opinions on this.
Yeah, people are using them. Like, so I'm not going to go and tell people which pheromones people are using because I just don't think it's right. I don't know. Part of me thinks that there's an element of I just don't think it's right.
Moral implications, is that what you mean?
Yeah, but when we say that, people are thinking, "Oh shit, it's because they're super good." I think it's like there's a lot of other things that can be, just as good, but are a bit more moral. I mean, look, if you beings, like human beings, fish beings, any fucking animal, basically, we are largely driven by hormones and brain chemicals. Okay, so if you are then putting something into the water, which is obviously the equivalent of their air, that's changing their brain chemistry to make them act in a certain way, like, is that moral? Have you really caught that fish, or have you just used science to catch them? Now, you could say, well, hang on, where does that stop? Because if you're focused on bait, surely you're using science to catch fish. I get it. I do get it. But I think this is a little bit different, isn't it? I don't know. Something doesn't sit quite well with me about the whole thing. And I just don't really want to get into it, to be honest.
I'm sort of with you on that. I sort of distanced myself sort of straight away from there. One, I can't wax lyrical on it, and two, like you say, I've got sort of there's some ethical sort of standpoints that sort of concern me, or well, I guess not concern me because I don't think about it like that, but it doesn't interest me from that standpoint. So I'm happy to move on.
Put it this way: look, if there was a chemical that you could pour into the water that would make the carp kind of like dumb down their other receptors and just kind of like in a zombie-like state make their way over to you, would you use that? Like, no, you probably wouldn't use it. And I'm not saying that these hormone-like substances, because they're not hormones, they're hormone-like substances. I'm not saying it's having quite that effect, but it's somewhere on that scale. It's just not quite right, is it? You know, let's say there was a big carp and it was just chilling in the sun. It was like just in this like daydream state. If you just sneaked up on it on a net and whipped the net up underneath it and it's in your landing net, you can have a photo of that. Does that count? No, it doesn't fucking count. So it's not quite as extreme. It's not as bad as that, but it's somewhere on the scale, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mate, I'm just, like I say, it's not something I think you've summed it up. I've sort of said my little bit. It just is what it is. Come back to me in a year's time. I might be really into it. You never know. You never know.
Desperate and just like anything to catch.
Literally. Okay, so the next question from Original Bank Keepers something or other, which I can't read. So fish meal HNV style base mixes. That's it. Open-ended question. Go for it.
What's the question, sorry?
Fish meal HNV style base mixes. I'll go in, mate.
I'll go in.
I'll go in. No, I'm going in.
I want to go in.
Go on, you go in.
No, I don't want to now.
Go on.
No, I don't want to.
You've got this, mate. No.
Mate, I don't want to go in.
Mate, you seem so fucking eager.
Well, I want to stay out
okay.
now.
All right, so basically, fish meal HNV style base mixes. Now, I would say the vast majority of a fish meal bait on the market nowadays, it is easy for it to be an HNV style base mix, isn't it? Any bait, pretty much, that contains, I don't know, what's your average bait? 25%, sort of like LT94, you add sort of 5%, so 7% WPC80. That has pretty much got a fish's amino acid sort of profile covered, hasn't it?
No.
You then add a mineral supplement, and it's pretty much there. You know, that would be considered an HNV style bait. Would you not agree?
Not quite. No, not quite. But you're getting there, aren't you?
I think it's bang on, really, mate. I mean, 25% LT94, stick a bit of WPC80 in there, add a mineral supplement. I think you could probably class that as an HNV bait nowadays.
You could class that as way better than a lot of baits on the market, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Which is kind of really my point. I think you say, I mean, I don't know. I do not know the makeup nowadays of a lot of baits, but knowing that can be the base of an HNV base mix, there's no excuses for companies, I don't think, for be producing fish meal baits, which wouldn't be so much considered HNV. I think the vast majority of baits on the market by the big companies would be considered an HNV base nowadays.
Well, hang on. First off, sorry to interrupt you, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Some people will not know what the hell you're on about when you say HNV. HNV stands for high nutritional value.
Yeah.
And the debate goes back to Fred Wilson. The basic idea of that high nutritional value is that one bait provides all, or at least most, of the carp's nutritional needs. Yeah?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I just wanted to spell it out, mate. Sorry, carry on.
No. So a low temperature fish meal, you look at the amino profile of that. It's got a lot of readily sort of digestible amino acids. You add sort of like a bit of WPC80, so which is sort of like a very, very easily sort of common sort of milk protein to the mix. It covers a fish's basic sort of need for amino acids that they can't sort of assimilate themselves, or they can't assimilate from their diet.
So that covers 100% of their amino acid needs, does it?
I think it covers. I mean, without having the data sheets in front of me, it covers vastly.
Once it's mixed with eggs and it's boiled.
Yeah, I'm just talking about those two in particular.
Yeah. And what, like, do they have to eat it immediately, or do they eat it, 20 hours in, whilst some of it is changed in its structure, some of it is leaked out, it's soluble? What about then?
I'm just saying, what would be on paper an HNV bait? I'm just saying, I think it's quite easy for a company now. I think most companies would offer on paper an HNV bait.
This
it's pretty simple.
Yeah, there's no there's no guide on what constitutes a HMV. I mean, you could do a soyo sema mix, but have fuckload of vitamins in there. Stick a load of Equivite in there, and you could say, well, no, it's HNV, it's high nutritional value because there's a lot of vitamins in that. So what are we talking about, Pete? Are we talking about vitamins?
So I'm talking about
we're talking about amino acids? Are we talking about carbs, fats? Like, what is HMV?
Well, amino acids, definitely. So it would meet a carp sort of like
amino acid requirements.
Would require. Yeah, absolutely. Vitamins and minerals, again, it's easy to add a supplement for those. Regarding a carp's carb requirements and protein requirements, I think that's very much up in the air as to how much sort of carbs and protein they would require. But I think from a very much a basic fish meal bait with 25% LT94, add 5 to 7% WPC80 would seriously cover a carp's amino acid requirements and their protein requirements with a vitamin supplement. I think it's just very easy to do. And for me, I've just sort of moved away from even sort of looking at an HNV bait anymore. I don't know about you. Do you look at the nutritional value of a bait? Is that something that worries you now? Or are you sort of looking at an attractor profile? Are you listening at gustatory stimulation?
I mean, yeah, I'm looking at all those things for hook baits. So my circle of concerns is like very small in as much as I'm looking at hook baits. So the mix, when I do formulate a base mix, excuse me, I've got gas. It's all based around how is that flavour going to behave. Excuse me. All I'm doing is flavours at the minute. I'm not rolling my own bait. As I said earlier, I'm using Kenny Gates's bait. Now, the bait he's using, the R1, is an old school fish meal type mix, like proper old school. Very high fish meal content. Some other bits, but I won't get into it. So, to answer your question, do I pay attention to that? Yeah, I do. I'm using the R1 because it's a very nutritious bait, but I'm also using it because it's caught a shitload of fish. When Kenny says, like, honestly, you should be using this bait, it's worth it, I listen to him. And I trust him implicitly. I know he wouldn't leave me astray. So, yeah, I'm looking into it as much as it goes in that regard. But as far as my hook baits go, it's far less important.
Yeah. I mean, do you think Kenny's bait is working so well because it covers the carp's nutritional requirements?
I think that's...
Or do you think it's because they really fucking love eating it?
I think most of it... I think most of it is because they love eating it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've not just garnered this opinion from just this bait. It's other baits as well. I could be fucking wrong. I'm not a carp. I don't know. Anyone that isn't a carp can't tell you this for sure. So guess what? No one can tell you for sure. But I think they fucking just love eating it. Now, why do they love eating it? That's the, £1,000,000 question.
I've just had a bit of an experience in my fucking tree house here. I've had to put on a light. So I haven't sort of explained this. I had to put on a light. I have rigged up a solar panel that is lights in this tree house. I just had some shit, mate. There's so many spiders and stuff in here. I feel really bad, actually, because I've just killed a grasshopper. I just had a grasshopper in my hair, and I've grabbed it and thrown it on the floor. I've put the light on, and I've killed a grasshopper. And it's not... if it was a spider, like a serious amount of spiders in here, I probably wouldn't feel too bad. But a grasshopper, mate, yeah, I'm a bit bummed out about that. Not going to lie. Bit annoying. Anyway, turn the light off. We'll move on to the next question. Moving away from HNV baits. So, I mean, you could tie it into this question. Gaining advantages or edges on busy waters. Oh. Now, I feel that my edge, again, something I do more and more and more and more now, is I fish single hook baits or solid bags, little mouthfuls of bait. Which I feel on my edge, especially if it's a busy water. I think that water's getting a lot of bait. I think people 9 times out of 10, I feel that anglers stove the bait in. I feel if they're not catching, they put more and more bait in. People get into a vicious little circle. I real feel going in with a single hook bait, where it's just, when I talk about a single hook bait as well, I'm not talking about a bottom bait. I normally fish a pop-up on its own, or I'll fish a solid bag. And when I say a solid bag, I always buy the smaller sized bag, where it's just a little mouthful of bait. And for me, I've got real confidence in that, and I can put that into my fishing, no worries. I've got no worries about sitting behind a single pop-up on its own. No matter the time of year, I can do that on a busy water if I feel it's going to get me a bite. I really have no qualms about it. I don't think you fish a lot of busy waters like that, do you, mate?
Well, no. Again, I said it earlier, like, you're pre-baiting certain areas. The problem is, when it's a busy water, it's hard to pre-bait an area that A, isn't fucking up someone else's fishing, and B, is going to be left untouched. The amount of times I've baited an area because I've thought, do you know what? I think the carp will pass through here. I can't see anyone casting here or fishing here, so I'll get this going as a spot. And that makes sense, doesn't it? But on these really busy waters...
on paper, for sure.
On these really busy waters, people will drop into these areas. And maybe they've got the same thought process as me. So it's very difficult. If you can get away with it, pre-baiting, definitely... It goes very, very well. Aside from that, this answer gets played out, but do something different. Doing something very, very different it just wins time and time again. If it's a busy water, as Pete's touched upon this a couple of times, it's probably seeing a lot of bait. So if I was to start fishing a lake and I knew it was really busy, I think what I would do is probably go in with singles. Sorry, Pete's just dropped out, so I'm just phoning him back. I think what I'll do is fish with either minimal bait or single baits at a time. Now, whether I would do that from finding the fish and then putting the bait towards them, or whether I would do it in a way that, okay, you can't find the fish, it's really fucking busy, the fish have kind of gone to ground, so to speak, so they're not really showing, you can't really see them from climbing trees. If that was the case, I would rove that hook bait around within the swim, or the areas or the swims that I could get to, and I'd find them that way. But basically, it would all boil down to doing something different. If you're on a busy water... People love fucking putting bait in, don't they? They love stoving the bait in, they love spomming out, or going out in a boat and chucking a load over. People love doing that. If it's a really busy water and it's a small water, so the water area gets fished a lot, I would go light. I would go single baits. I'd chuck them around. I'd find the fish. And then that's when your hook bait comes into play. Get that fucking hook bait, something that they really want to eat, that they really want to try. And so many people just work off of attraction with hook baits. What about taste? What about palatability? Fish are tasting a hook bait before they suck it in. People don't realise this. They don't.
I know what you mean.
They haven't got fucking tongues. They're not like humans. It's not only. It's not like, oh yeah, make it real strong. All you need to do is get them to suck it in. No, they can taste that fucking thing before they suck it in. Palatability is important from the off. It needs to be palatable. They need to want to suck it in. And guess what? There's different levels of sucking in. I realise there's some children laughing right now. It's funny, but you want that carp to really want that bait. You really suck it in hard, and then it's going to be easier to hook. So that's what I would say on busy waters. Go light, bait light, small bags. Again, not a sales thing. The llama dust seems to drive fish fucking crazy. It's phenomenal shit. Use that or use single baits. Make them extremely attractive and make them something that the carp want to eat. That would be my advice.
Absolutely. Right, mate. Next one. I'm going to leave you talking on this. It is from Rossi Cop Ones. He has just said, simple question, winter bait. I'm going to run for a piss. The beers are going through me now, I have to say. So winter bait, you keep talking. I'll be back in a sec.
Yeah, winter bait. Look, I could talk about bait and what works in winter, but ultimately you need to be on the fish in winter, otherwise it's all worth nothing. You need to find where those fish are hanging out in winter, and they tend to be congealed up in one area. They're held up in one area. They're locked up in one area of the lake normally. It's weird. This winter just gone, I fished a small lake, which you can see a lot of it. It's hard, it's very pressured, and the fish are old, wily fish, hard to catch. They'll stay in an area for weeks on end, and then something will happen with the weather, and then they will move. If you can get them on the move, I mean, if you're magic and you can foresee where they're going to move and when, and you can put a bait there, again, that works very, very well. But bait-wise, you want a lot of leak off. You want it, don't go in with like a high oil nut mix, because it's just going to congeal to fuck on the lake bed. It's not going to kick out good signals. It's not going to be that detectable by the carp. And guess what? If they do eat it, it's just going to clog up within them. It's not going to be very digestible. Now, I must say, a lot of people talk about digestibility of bait in the winter in particular. Gut transit time, which basically means the amount of time that the food takes to go from their mouth through their asshole and shat out, that's gut transit time. That's very different from digestibility. So everyone's like, I want a digestible bait in the winter because I want it to pass through them quick so they keep eating. Well, that's different. Digestibility means they can actually break down the food stuff and turn it into usable things, usable macronutrients and micronutrients, carbs, fats, protein, vitamins, minerals. And then obviously you've got phytochemicals, etc. on from that. So you need to make that distinction. Gut transit time, very, very different from digestibility. On from that, I'll be honest, this winter, as far as bait goes, obviously I just touched upon, I think Pete's just come back, so I'll touch upon this again. You've got to find the fish, you've got to be on the fish, you need to put it on the fish. The location is always important, but even more important in winter. But in terms of the actual bait I'll be giving them, I'm going to go with a very, very basic mix. It will be fairly high in semolina and some other bits and bobs. It will have a decent amount of an EA ethyl alcohol flavour in it. And I will keep things very, very simple. Fairly low nutritional value, to be honest. Although that's not by design. It's just because that is what is necessary. Fairly high in carbohydrates. A lot of people get this wrong regarding carbohydrates, particularly in winter. Carbohydrates are a good thing and they're a good way to fatten up fish. People constantly overlook this area of nutrition regarding the macronutrients of fish feed. But carbohydrates are very important, and they're very applicable in the winter. They have a lot of carbohydrate breaking enzymes present in their gut tract, much more so than proteases, protein splitting enzymes. So don't neglect the carbohydrates. Pete, you back? I don't know. I feel like I'm waffling. I'm pissed.
You're waffling, mate.
Stella's
do you know what?
in.
You have covered pretty much the majority of things I would have covered. So again, digestibility and gut transit time. I look for a bait which has got a good gut transit time. If I was running my own bait, I'm adding a lot of hemp expeller. I'm adding some wheat germ to it, purely to get that bait moving through the fish. Protein content, it's low. I'll often fish not a wheat-based bait, but a cereal-based bait. There'll be sort of a lack of milk protein. There'll just be a lack of protein in there for the reasons that you've covered. So as little protein really as possible, full of carbohydrate. I want that bait passing through the fish easily as possible, so it's not stodging them up. So for me, hemp expeller, especially in the winter, I absolutely love putting in my bait. Only needs to be a low inclusion level, and the same as wheat germ as well. EA Flavours, Flavours in general, just EA Flavours are, like you say, fantastic. Again, I would use a combination of flavours. You don't necessarily want it all leaching off like super quick. If you can use a combination of flavours, I think you're doing well. And something you didn't mention, mate, was sight. I like to use light coloured baits. You don't need to use a lot of bait in the winter, and I'll often use a white bait dye and a cereal based bait just to make it noticeable. Basically, I'm quite happy to do that. I think sight feeding can be a real edge, and I'm not just talking single hook baits here. I'll happily use, like I say, a white dye in my feed baits in the winter for a real edge. Yeah, that's it really.
Use a little tip to add on to that. Use some calcium caseinate, some caseinate, however you want to say it. Use a little touch of that. Literally, when I say a touch, you could just have 5% of that, and then a little bit of yeast as well. I like Brocasel yeast. Add those two things in to a higher carbohydrate based bait in the winter. Couple that with an EA flavour. If you're doing longer sessions, then you're going to want maybe an oil-based flavour or a PG flavour in with that as well. For me, I'm doing short sessions, like short overnighters. I can get away with just an EA flavour. That's my preferred thing. Along with, as Pete said, some digestibles, hemp expeller, wheat germ, soya as well, semolina. Little bit of soya, a lot of semolina, and then, as I just said, the calcium caseinate and the Brocasel yeast, and you're going to have a good bait there. It obviously devils in the detail, play with it, make sure it rolls well, leaches out well. But yeah, for me, once the water gets colder, the magic is in aroma compounds and flavours, and I've always been that way. This is not new. I've always been that way, and yeah.
So where are we? Making pop-ups for fishing singles. We've dealt with
winter bait. We've just done winter bait.
Oh, nice one. Thank you.
Well, we haven't really. Do you know what, guys? For those who are interested, we will cover that in more detail. I think when we're both less pissed, nearer the time.
I think
we've got autumn. We've got autumn to get through first. So autumn for me. Boilies, good quality HMV fish meal, high nutritional value. High fish meal baits for me in autumn. Let's do that for a month or two, and then let's get into winter baits. How about that?
Absolutely. Oh, mate, I mean, this is a whole different rabbit hole, isn't it? But, I mean, autumn, people overlook it almost, don't they? And people hone straight into winter. I mean, they get sort of into October and they're straight away thinking sort of like winter fishing. But you can prolong that autumn, like as you said about that HNV fish meals, a good quality bait in autumn. If you have a mild winter, which we have had quite a few times in recent years, you can go all the way through the winter with that mindset, really, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, yes, bear in mind you're down in Cornwall, so you've got milder winters than we have up here.
Very true, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like you say, another podcast we can sort of go over that.
Yeah.
So this one is from Ravel R's message. Perhaps natural baits. Any thoughts on maggots, casters, snails, worms, etc.? I'm gonna say, you know what? I've not fished with natural hook baits. Very, very rarely have I fished with maggots. I fished with worms more than I have with maggots. Snails, I can say I've never used snails in a baiting approach or on a hook bait. So it's not something I'm going to sort of wax lyrical about or talk about. Is it something you're doing much of?
No, do you know what? Obviously, winter time. To stem back to what we were talking about. Winter. Obviously, a lot of people are on maggots. I mean, we're talking about Sandhurst as well, Pete, where you fish. Obviously, Sandhurst is. I think it's got its name from its winter form. I think it's a fairly shallow lake. Obviously, it's
correct.
It's crammed full of fish. There's a lot of fish in there. It's 14 acres. There's over 400 fish, which is high stock. So it's got good winter form. Obviously, a lot of people go there in the winter and they will use maggots and they'll catch well. To be honest with you, I have not used maggots in the winter to any great degree. In fact, I don't think I've ever fished for carp with maggots, if I'm being honest. Other species, yeah, obviously, many moons ago, but I don't think I've fished with them. In terms of casters, again, no, not something I really use. Snails, no. Worms, no. I've used things like cockles and shrimps. I've used razorfish, and Pete will remember that.
I do.
Maybe we'll tell the story of that at some point. Deepest, darkest Cornwall pit, and razorfish was the way to go. We'll come to that another time, maybe. But no, natural baits of that nature, not using that much. Worms, I'm a fan of. I was ordering Willie's worms many, many years ago. I think it's when they first started. I remember them having that
green worms or something.
They did green dendrobinas. That was later on, I think. Or was that in the beginning? Yeah, I remember having those out in the garage. And yeah, worms are a good carp bait for sure, particularly stalking in the edge. It's not something I do now to any great degree. So yeah, couldn't comment on it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, same as me. I'm not going to wax sort of lyrical about something I don't use in my own fishing. Yeah,
I mean, when this guy is asking about natural bait, I'm presuming he means critters, natural critters. I mean, there's all kind of natural things, isn't there? I remember one winter time out on the bank, deepest, darkest winter in deepest, darkest Cornwall. Pete wanted to use a natural bait and he was masturbating on the bank, but I think it's probably less we say about that the better.
Wow.
Yeah, let it go, Pete. Sorry, dropped you in the fire there. Next question is
I'll tell you what, mate. The next one, all I'll say to round this up, Sean Harrison, I think his first episode with us,
yeah,
he spoke a lot about his how he attracts naturals within the lake to his hook bait, which he was convinced are an attractor to carp. So if you haven't listened to that one, sort of cast back for a back catalogue and listen to Sean, and really good episode of his theories of that. The next one was from Norit MTG, who has said winter is coming. I think we've covered winter pretty conclusively. Nicky Scadden, long-term listener, I recognise the name. He'll be one of the guys who's ordered hook baits from us. I paint a real image of them in my mind, and I get this information from their name. I've got their email address, which some of them are just comic. Some of their email addresses they clearly made when they were like 15 years old, and they probably regret it now. And then some of the people, I'm thinking like they live in Westminster. Like we should be charging more than £8 a tub of pop-ups here. Anyway, so Nicky Scadden from Liverpool, no doubt. has said base mix ingredients and their reasons.
He's never going to write in again. You know that.
No,
From Liverpool,
never.
no doubt. You can't say that, Pete. It's really rude. Unless I'm being rude by saying it's rude, because I'm not saying Liverpool's bad, obviously.
Disrespectful.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I used to go out with a girl from Liverpool.
Yeah, how did that end up?
I'm not with her now.
Okay. Right, base mix ingredients and the reasons for their inclusion. Open-ended question. I feel like we could do an entire podcast on that, mate. You got anything? Oh, mate, we've covered so much on these sort of questions anyway.
It's a good question. I just think it's going to take a lot of...
To be honest with you, mate, I feel like a lot of the really key ingredients that can make a difference in a base mix, you're looking at your soluble ingredients, I believe. And I think, obviously, a lot of people, and they would say, how many soluble ingredients can they have in the base mix? And a very rough figure would be, on your average base mix, about 20%.
Why the soluble part then?
To make a difference to fish, because I feel like the soluble part is getting out there in the water column.
What about once they eat it?
Yeah, I think we're going down sort of rabbit holes here, but I feel like the soluble part is I feel a huge part is gustatory figures. I think what the fish can taste, and I think that is predominantly within a soluble part of the bait. That's just in my head. Would you disagree with that?
Yeah, I disagree with that. Yeah.
So you're saying, like, what about when the fish eat it? Do you think the fish are getting a feel good factor from sort of like when they're breaking it down?
I think they should. I think if you want to create the best bait that you could, I think you want them to feel good once they've eaten it.
Mm-hmm. And
which, by the way, like it might not just be they're chewing it back to their gills and they're feeling fucking great. I mean, after.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a subtle thing, and I think humans can feel like this. If you eat, McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 5 days in a row, you're going to feel like absolute fucking shit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You feel you eat some great fucking enriching foods. You might not enjoy them when you eat them, but you're going to feel pretty good. You're going to be that little bit sharper at the end of the week after 5 days. You're going to be a little bit more on shit. You're going to find your words a little bit more efficiently. So that's something in humans. Now, I think carp are more primal than us, and I think they get to that stage much quicker. And for that reason, it's devil's in the detail. I think they need to feel good when they eat it.
Honestly, I think that would make a very good topic and something for a future podcast, as we could talk about numerous... We could sort of like pick sort of like the top 50 sort of base mix ingredients and go through them and talk about their inclusions and why we might include them, or we could have a guest on, for example, and talk about why they would use them, why they wouldn't use them.
Yeah. Go on, next question.
Okay, so this is one you haven't actually seen, mate. It's from Talon Powers. He's emailed to my personal email. He's one of the guys. He actually lives in the US. He was one of the guys I sort of spoke with.
How's he got your personal email?
It was one of the ones we had to agree some postage rates to get his pop-ups out to the US, mate.
Right.
He was one of those guys, and he's actually emailed in, not through any reason. He's just got some questions about the flavours that we've released, so I thought I'd put them to you now. So unconventional. So here we go. So Talon from the US. I'm going to be hydrating some corn, and wanted to know which of your two flavours just released would be the best to add in separate batches.
To corn?
So hydrating corn. So this is quite obviously a big thing. So maize,
I
presumably.
wouldn't have a clue.
So yeah, I do not add flavour to particle, but I would go for the cream dream personally.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing because of the base. Mm-hmm. I would go with the cream dream.
Cool. Sam, you are the master baiter, mate. You pre-bait like no one else I know. He has asked, when consecutively baiting a public area, what are your tactics? How many days would you want the bait to be out there? I'm adding some words to his sentence here, before you fish. So if you're pre-baiting an area, mate, how long would you want to pre-bait it, essentially, before you sort of hit the spot?
It depends on how many carp are in the lake, how many nuisance species, how much of that bait is getting eaten. Put it this way, I've baited a spot for the last 3 weeks. I've been going 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes 5 times a week in the last week. It's about prime now. The longer you can leave it, the better. So the longer you can keep that bait going in without any lines in the water, the better it's going to be. But you need at least 3 weeks, 4 weeks. 5 weeks is great. Let's say you can get to a spot once every 3 days. Do that for 6 weeks and then put a line there. And honestly, if you've got it right, if it's in an area where the fish are going to frequent, they're going to visit, and you're giving them a good bait that they want to eat and they want to come back for, you're going to reap the rewards for sure. I like at least 4 weeks, but longer the better is the best answer I can give.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer.
I've got to go for a mate. I am hanging on for dear life for a piss. You ask the next question and you answer it, okay?
Yeah, no worries. And the last thing Talent added was that you guys should have shirts and cool swag on your website because you provide a lot of cool knowledge. People will support that. So we've a number of people actually have asked us about whether we could do some t-shirts or beanie hats and things. And I think it's something we'll definitely look to do in the future. But man, all this stuff takes so much time, and me and Sam are both real busy. And we just don't want to. We could knock out an easy t-shirt from a drop to shipping company that you guys could buy. We'd never see. We wouldn't have to post off, but the likelihood is after a few washes, it would go like pretty crap in the wash, etc. It'd be a bad quality. But at some point, we'll source something. We'll do some t-shirts and maybe some beanie hats, etc. If any of you guys would be interested in buying some bits and pieces, but it's probably a little way off yet, but we will do it for certain. Cool. So next question that Sam has sent through, I am frantically scrolling through my phone here because I've got no freaking idea where they are now. Is from John. What about mixing hydraulic slates and adding flavours?
Yeah, there's a bit of a backstory to this. So yeah, John, he's been I think he's a long-time listener, long-time contributor,
Definitely
that's for
is,
sure. Yeah, John Carp on Facebook as well. Maybe we shouldn't even announce that. People are going to message him. Anyway, yeah, he messaged me the other day about mixing hydrolysates, and he puts flavours with his hydrolysates. Mm-hmm. So I've spoken about, I think probably since the very beginning of this podcast, I mix Salmigo with squid brand fish sauce.
Yes.
John takes it a step further and adds on a crab flavour, John Baker's crab, which is a very good... By the way, that John Baker crab, very good flavour. We use that in our yummies. Mm-hmm. We use expensive shit in our stuff. Honestly, we should charge more for what we do because we absolutely make fuck all. But anyway, John Baker crab, very good flavour. Yeah, he's on about data sheets, and it is interesting, but I'm not going to go into it on this podcast, John. But he's basically asking for our opinion on mixing up different liquids and hydrolysates. Pete, do you do this to any extent?
I have recently been using the squid hydrolysate from Bath, which I actually got through Maltbees because Bath don't have it in stock, so presumably it's old stock from a previous batch. And it's quite a thin liquid, so I've not really found the need to mix it. I have been mixing squid brand fish sauce with some CSL that I've been using recently, which I feel like I've had good results on. I've been using it in solid bags. I've been using it as a boilie, not as a soak as such, but I've been using it to sort of coat my boilies in a powder. So that's been like the liquid form to create a powdered sort of crust around baits. The combination of that with the squid brown fish sauce. Yeah, I've got nothing I'd be seriously confident in, put it that way. Something I use on a regular basis. Something would I be really confident and go fishing without? No, probably not. Not a mixture like that. I know you've spoken about the salmigo with CSL and squid brownfish sauce in the past as a hook bait soak or a boilie sort of soak, but I don't know if it's something you would use and sort of be sort of really unconfident if you didn't have it in your armory.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, and on the subjects of CSL, there are some fairly good CSLs out there. You've got to go direct to manufacturer. You've got to spend a lot of money with them basically to get the good ones, and I don't think you're missing a great deal by not doing that. As I said, salmigo mixed with squid brownfish sauce. I like a mix. It works very, very well. The John, in a different message, I think, asked about the Bassaral tuna hydrolysate, which is made by Sea Garden, which used to make the L030, which was just a phenomenal hydrolysate. Yeah. The tuna stuff's not as good. It really isn't. It's made by Sea Garden. It's made with the same machinery, which is why I think a lot of people talk about it in the same regard. In my experience of using it, it's not as good. But yeah, I think there's better stuff out there. It's by no means bad. I'll tell you that. I'd happily use it if I had to. But again, I'm so wrapped up in the Flavours now. I'm not really using hydrolysates. Used them in years gone by. And yeah, Bassaral have got a few good ones. As I said, the salmigo is great. I'm a big fan of it. Carp like it. Their shrimp hydrolysate, again, that's very good. John Baker has one as well. It's good. Bassaral one's very good as well.
Sorry, what does John Baker do?
Shrimp hydrolysate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've used the Bassaral one. I think you actually gave me a bottle or two of that, didn't you?
Yeah, probably.
Probably going back 12 months or so ago. Yeah, I'll tell you what, mate, the L030 thing, how much of that is rose-tinted glasses looking back, because that was really the first product of its kind on the market?
I think that's some of it, but no, it's not just that. I don't think it is.
No.
I think it was that good.
I mean, that was like a thick paste, realistically, wasn't it? Wasn't like a lot of hydros you get today. And I think that's where a lot of, I mean, we mentioned it earlier talking about hydros and people like them thick. I think probably a lot of that comes from the original L030, doesn't it?
I don't know. I think watering down is a big thing in people's psyche. They think, oh, it's watered down, it's thick, it's less thick, and but that happens though. That's a real thing as well.
Yeah, for sure.
One of these hydrolysates I got given from Bath British Aquafeeds, it is ridiculously thick, and it's too thick to put into production. I understand why they're saying that. It's fucking effective. Fish are going wild for it, honestly. It is very good. Will it be less effective when it's watered down? I don't think so, because it's not watering down as we know it. Yes, you can cut it with water and make it weaker, and then therefore it's less potent, it's less effective. Yes, but that is not the same thing as it's just different things, if that makes sense.
Cool.
You can produce something so it's thinner. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean you've just watered it down.
No, I understand what you're saying, mate. I do. Okay, so next question. So we've got, I think, two more questions to go. We need to round this up. It is, oh my days, it is nearly 1 o'clock in the morning, mate. We have been going for a solid 4 hours. Over 4 hours. Damn. Cool. So this one's from Jack. Okay, so hello again, lads. I've got another question for you tonight. As someone who has never rolled his own pop-ups, I want to try your new flavours, and how will I go to, if that makes sense? Like, do I need some sort of base mix, etc.? Might sound a stupid question, but I'd like to try rolling my own hook baits. ordered some bait off Dean as well after my last question and caught 2 carp on my second session using it. So thanks again for that. So yeah, Dean's bait, he rolls a very good bait. Obviously, he wants to try our Flavours. How does he go about rolling his own hook baits? Sam, we've covered it already. How would he go about doing it? Bath.
Yeah, I would go get yourself some hook bait mix from British Aquafeeds. Order our Flavours. Best thing to do, realistically, is message us. Let us know where you're fishing. It's probably going to be me that answers because I do social media. Let us know where you're fishing. Let us know what your approach is and what you're up against. I'll tell you. I'll be honest with you, and I'll tell you where to go from there.
Right, mate. And I think that is. I'll tell you what. Actually, do you know what? John Wilkinson also has sent some questions in, which I don't have in front of me, but everything he sort of mentioned we have covered in one guise or another in the podcast, so I don't think we need to cover them. I'll very quickly read them out because he's spent the time to message us to get them out there. So he wanted to hear about the flavours we've released and the next step for Bait Bros. We have more than covered that in this podcast. And also reflection of your visit to Bath, which you covered nicely earlier as well. And I think that's pretty much a good time to round it up. Would you agree?
I'd agree, mate. I am well and truly pissed. I've had all my beers. I've actually gone and stole a bottle of Prosecco, and I'm halfway through that as well. So
Jesus.
I'm fucking shit-faced right now.
Bottle of
apologies,
Prosecco, mate.
Yeah, apologies about ranting on to everyone. I get passionate about this, and I'm spending so much fucking time blending these flavours and then testing them and giving them to a few select people to test. It's something that's very close to my heart, so I apologise if I've laid it on a little bit thick during this podcast. I promise you, it's just because I'm really fucking passionate and I believe in this stuff. So yeah. Anyway.
Sam's
that's
baby.
it.
No, we love it, mate. Well done. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Peace out.